California's sun-soaked landscapes hide more than just deserts, forests, and bustling cities. Deep in abandoned neighborhoods, forgotten corners of the state, and overgrown lots, stand mosques that have been left to the mercy of time. These once sacred spaces, built for prayer and community, now echo with whispers, shadows, and tales that locals dare not repeat aloud. Tonight, we step into the forgotten mosques of California. 25 haunted, abandoned places rumored to harbor jinns, beings from the unseen realm that move between worlds, trapped within walls that humans have long abandoned. Some say the jinns are mischievous, some say malevolent, and some merely curious. Whatever their nature, these mosques are no longer empty, and the stories that linger here are not for the faint of heart. Walk with me carefully, for these walls have memories, and some of them refuse to stay silent. Al-Noor Mosque in Fresno once stood as a beacon of unity for the neighborhood surrounding it. In its earliest days, the call to prayer echoed beautifully across the quiet streets, drawing people from every corner of the community. Children played in the courtyard, elders gathered beneath the minaret's shadow, and the interior glowed with warm lantern light during evening prayers. But over the years, as families moved away and conflicts simmered beneath the surface, the mosque slowly lost its congregation. Leadership disputes splintered the once closed community, leaving wounds that never fully healed. Now the mosque stands quiet and hollow, its plaster peeling, windows shattered, and its floor coated in layers of dust and neglect. Graffiti crawls across the outer wall, symbols, names, and cryptic messages left by curious trespassers unaware of what truly lingers within. Yet the mosque is not empty. Those who walk past at night say flickering lights appear in the prayer hall, pulsing faintly like lanterns struggling to stay lit. These lights move with intention, as though carried by unseen hands. People who dare to approach the building feel sudden waves of cold drifting from the main entrance. The air shifts, heavy and oppressive, as if something guards the interior. Some insist they hear faint whispers, not in any recognizable language, but layered and overlapping like distant chants carried by wind through broken glass. Inside, the atmosphere is unnervingly still. Dust hangs thickly in the beams of moonlight that filter through cracked windows. The once polished prayer hall carpet is now torn and faded, but the chill that emanates from it feels deliberate. Locals believe this coldness marks the presence of Jinns spirits tied not to death, but to emotion, conflict, and unresolved grievances. According longtime residents, these Jinns are not malicious by nature. Instead, they are remnants of the turmoil that once divided the community. They linger in limbo, unable to depart because the bitterness that birthed them was never reconciled. Witnesses describe figures that appear near the mihrab, the niche that once pointed worshippers toward Mecca. These shapes are not solid, but vague silhouettes darker than the surrounding darkness, shifting gently as though swaying in prayer. When approached, they dissolve into the air, leaving behind only a breath of cold wind and the faint scent of old incense. The sound of shuffling feet is often heard along the mosque's back corridor, as if someone is pacing restlessly, repeating a routine from decades past. The minaret, though cracked and leaning slightly, remains the mosque's most active point of energy. At night, a dim glow sometimes flickers from its upper window, even though no electricity has reached the building in years. People claim they have seen a figure standing within the minaret, tall, cloaked, unmoving, watching silently over the empty courtyard. When anyone approaches, the figure disappears, replaced by darkness and a rush of icy air that trails down the staircase. Some locals believe this presence guards the mosque, preventing trespassers from further desecrating it. Others say it is one of the jinns bound by old betrayal, forever trapped between the sacred call to prayer and the unrest that silenced it. Strangely, the mosque's acoustics have changed over the years. Visitors report that even a whisper seems to multiply into several voices, drifting to every corner of the room. Some say they have heard the faint call to prayer, the adhan, coming from inside late at night, soft, distant, almost sorrowful. The sound stops abruptly as soon as someone enters the courtyard, as if the unseen worshippers sense they are no longer alone. Animals avoid the structure entirely. Cats that roam the neighborhood pause at the mosque's perimeter, but refuse to step onto the cracked tiles. Birds swarm around the minaret, but never perch on it. Even stray dogs grow tense when passing by, lowering their heads and speeding up their pace. It is as though every living creature recognizes that the place belongs to something else now. Something unseen, ancient and restless. Some residents believe the Jinns remain because of an unresolved dispute between former mosque leaders. The bitterness of those arguments seeped into the very walls, giving the spirits a place to cling to. Others think the mosque is simply a gathering point for lost energies drawn to sacred spaces left unprotected. Regardless of the origin, few dare to enter after sunset. The most chilling accounts come from those who have wandered too close at night. They describe sudden chills, a tightening in the chest, and the unmistakable sensation of being watched from all directions. A few have heard their names whispered, spoken softly in a voice they did not recognize. Some insist they saw someone kneeling in the prayer hala only for the figure to rise, turn, and fade into a swirl of shifting shadows. Despite its decay, Al-Noor Mosque remains a place charged with presence. The Jinns, born from conflict and sorrow, drift between the minaret and the main hall, caught between devotion and unrest. Their flickering lights, cold touches, and whispered movements create an atmosphere that is both mournful and haunting. The mosque stands as a lingering reminder of what once was a sacred home turned silent witness to unresolved spirits who have not yet found their way to peace. Sultana S. Crescent Mosque in Los Angeles stands like a fallen monument to a forgotten congregation, its once shining dome partially collapsed, and its courtyard overrun with creeping vines. What remains is a hollowed shell of cracked marble, broken tiles, and archways that frame only darkness. Yet as night falls, the mosque seems to shift into another version of itself, one that vibrates with unseen energy, as if the walls remember prayers whispered decades ago. Locals walking past the ruins often pause without knowing why, suddenly struck by a coldness that settles on their shoulders like an unseen hand. The stories surrounding Sultana S. Crescent Mosque began long before its decline. During its construction, workers spoke of strange accidents of tools falling from still hands, sudden chills despite the summer heat, and whispers that circled around them, though no one stood nearby. One builder claimed he saw a shape made of smoke gathering beneath the unfinished dome, twisting as if trying to form a human outline. Others laughed it off, but the older workers murmured prayers under their breath. It was said that something ancient, something curious, had been disturbed when the first foundation stones were laid. After the mosque opened, its congregation thrived for years. Children ran through the courtyard, families filled the prayer hall, and the call to prayer echoed warmly across the neighborhood. But there were quiet rumors, even Thina, of late-night volunteers hearing footsteps following them down empty hallways, or the imam pausing mid-sermon because he felt someone standing directly behind him when the space was clearly empty. Some worshippers mentioned feeling watched whenever they stood near the pulpit, as though an unseen presence leaned over their shoulders. As the years passed and the community drifted away, the mosque began to crumble. Rain seeped through cracks, the dome sagged, and the once polished floors gathered dust. But the activity did not fade. Instead, according to locals, it intensified. Those who dare to explore the ruins at night often describe the same unnerving sensations. The moment they step under the surviving archway, the air becomes heavy, thick with a temperature drop that defies the dry Los Angeles night. They hear whispers, soft, rhythmic, flowing in Arabic, yet too low to decipher. The sound seems to come from everywhere at once, echoing off broken walls and drifting through the courtyard. Some say the whispers grow louder the deeper one moves inside, forming words that tug at the mind like forgotten memories. Stranger still are the footsteps. Visitors report hearing them on the cracked marble floor, quiet, deliberate, too measured to be an animal. The steps follow behind at a precise distance, stopping whenever the intruder stops, beginning again only when they move. No shadow, no figure, no explanation ever reveals itself. The most unsettling accounts come from those who stand near the collapsed dome. By moonlight, shadows appear beneath the broken arcades of figures that look almost human, but elongated, blurred, wavering like heat on pavement. They stand motionless, watching, staring. Their forms stretch across the floor and walls, yet no physical body casts them. More than one person has fled the moment those shapes began to drift closer, slow as rising smoke. Rumor weaves a darker legend beneath these encounters. According to those who knew the mosque during its early days, a jinn was trapped within its structure during construction. Workers supposedly sealed something they did not understand beneath the foundation, something ancient, restless, and unwilling to be confined. For years it remained quiet, stirring only in small ways. But once the mosque fell into decay and the human presence faded, the jinn found space to stretch its influence, shaping the shadows and the whispers that countless visitors now report. Neighbors living near Sultana Crescent Mosque insist they still see faint lights flickering inside long after midnight, like lanterns swaying though no flame burns. Some lights travel across the floor in smooth glides, disappearing abruptly as if swallowed by unseen doorways. Elder residents refuse to walk past the mosque after sundown, claiming the place a breathasa when the city sleeps. Today, the mosque remains untouched, avoided by most and approached only by curious investigators and thrill-seekers. Those who enter rarely stay long. They describe the pulpit as the building's most active point. Standing there feels like stepping into a pocket of frozen air, as though the jinn still lingers near the spot where sermons once called the faithful together. Many emerge shaken, unable to describe the sensation of being watched from inches away by something they could not see. The arches whisper, the shadows stretch, and the ruined dome holds the echo of something ancient that refuses to be forgotten. Whether it is the trapped jinn of old construction folklore or something else entirely, one truth continues to echo through every account. This mosque, though abandoned, is far from empty. Bayview Mosque in Oakland stands alone on a quiet bluff overlooking the water, its silhouette cracked and jagged against the gray coastal sky. Once a vibrant center for worship and community gatherings, it is now a husk of shattered windows, rusted doors, and walls marked by salt-laced winds. The call to prayer has long since faded, yet the mosque seems to hum with a strange pressure, as if unseen voices still linger in the air. Locals walking the Bay Trail keep their distance, especially after sunset, when the place takes on a presence that feels colder than the ocean breeze. Those who grew up near Bayview Mosque remember it as a peaceful sanctuary. The courtyard bustled with families during festivals, and the prayer hall glowed warmly in the evening light. But after a series of unexplained incidents of flickering lights, sudden power failures, and distant sounds of chanting long after closinga, the congregation dwindled. When an earthquake cracked the foundation and damaged the minaret, the remaining members relocated, leaving the mosque to the elements. Time took its toll quickly. Ivy crawled up the plaster, the dome lost its luster, and the doors sagged on their hinges. Yet even in ruin, the building never felt entirely empty. Visitors who dare to step inside speak first of the silencia thick, heavy, unnatural. Ida S. said that the air inside the mosque feels cooler than the outside temperature, as if the walls themselves exhale a chilled breath. Dust lies undisturbed on the floor. But the echoes tell a different story. Some claim to hear faint chanting drifting from the central prayer hall. The cadence eerily similar to recitations performed decades ago. The sound is distant yet unmistakable, and it stops abruptly whenever someone tries to follow it. On particularly foggy evenings, strange sights occur beneath the broken skylight. People walking along the road say they have seen figures moving behind the shattered windowsa. Tall silhouettes gliding along the walls, vanishing the moment the fog shifts. Others swear that shadowy forms walk the perimeter of the minaret, circling its cracked exterior as if keeping watch. These apparitions remain silent, yet the atmosphere around the mosque becomes heavy and electric when they appear, as though charged with an invisible force. At the heart of the legends surrounding Bayview Mosque is a tale of a vengeful jinn said to guard a hidden treasure buried somewhere in the courtyard. According to old community elders, during the mosquea's earliest days, a wealthy donor contributed a series of ornate artifacts or rare manuscripts, intricately carved wooden panels, and gold-inlaid ceremonial pieces. Fearing theft during a time of neighborhood unrest, the builders supposedly buried these valuables beneath the courtyard, sealing them away until the mosque could guarantee their safety. But the treasure was never retrieved. As the years passed and the mosque changed hands, the story faded into rumor. What remained, however, was the belief that something had been placed to protect Ida, something ancient, restless, and bound to the ground where it was summoned. According to the legend, a Jinn was invoked during construction, tasked with guarding the hidden artifacts. But as the mosque fell into disrepair and the congregation abandoned it, the Jinn grew angered by its isolation. Instead of safeguarding the treasure for a returning community, it became fierce and territorial, warding away anyone who stepped too close. Some locals insist the Jinn's presence explains the chanting, the moving shadows, and the sudden bursts of cold air inside the building. The minaret, damaged and leaning slightly toward the bay, is believed to be the entity's chosen haunt. Those brave enough to approach it at night report hearing soft but urgent whispers spiraling down from its dark interior. The whispers grow louder with each step upward, forming chants that reverberate through the narrow stairwell. A few explorers have attempted to reach the top, but most turn back before climbing more than a few steps, convinced they are not alone in the darkness. The courtyard, cracked and overgrown with weeds, carries its own mysteries. Some nights, the ground appears to ripple under moonlight, as if shifting from within. Visitors have described seeing faint light glowing beneath the soil, brief pulses, like a heartbeat. These strange occurrences fuel the belief that the buried treasure still lies beneath, watched over by something that does not wish it to be found. Several urban explorers have reported unsettling encounters inside the main prayer hall. They describe hearing footsteps following them across the mosaic tiles, though no one else was present. One visitor claimed that as he stood near the mihrab, a cold gust swept past him, accompanied by a low, humming chant that vibrated through his bones. Another described seeing a spectral figure emerge from the far corner of the hala, a tall, indistinct shape that pressed itself against the wall before dissolving into shadow. Despite countless warnings, curious adventurers continue to approach Bayview Mosque, drawn by its eerie beauty and the legends of its restless guardian. Yet most who leave never forget the feeling that something watched from the broken windows, something ancient and unseen, waiting for them to go. Bayview Mosque may be abandoned, but the chanting persists, the shadows still glide along the walls, and the minaret remains guarded. Whether the Jinn truly protects a hidden treasure or simply clings to a once sacred place, the air around the mosque carries a steady reminder that some spirits linger long after the world forgets them. Desert Rose Mosque sits quietly in the shifting sands outside Palm Springs, its once white walls now the color of sun-bleached bone. Half buried by decades of drifting dunes, the mosque looks more like a mirage than a structure built by human hands. Wind moves through its cracked arches with a low hum, carrying the scent of dry sage and sun-baked earth. Although the mosque has been abandoned for years, locals swear that something still stirs there after dusk, something that emerges when the desert's oppressive heat gives way to a cold, eerie calm. Travelers who take the back roads of Palm Springs often stumble upon Desert Rose by accident. The mosque does not appear on modern maps, and its small minaret, once a beacon for worshippers, leans slightly like a sand-worn tooth. The courtyard is buried waist-deep in dunes, and only the top half of the doorway remains visible. Faded mosaic tiles peek out from beneath the sand, their colors muted but still carrying the elegance of a bygone era. Many believe the desert is slowly reclaiming the place, swallowing it grain by grain until nothing remains but whispers. But the whispers are precisely what keep the mosque alive in local legend. Those who pass by at night tell of hearing the faint echo of a call to prayer drifting across the Denisa. Soft, melodic, impossibly distant, yet unmistakably real. The sound arrives on windless nights, echoing from no visible source. Travelers look around, expecting to see someone atop the leaning minaret or standing at the half-buried entrance. But the place remains empty. The call rises, hangs in the air like a shimmering mirage, and then fades, leaving only silence and the uneasy sense of being watched. Some attribute the phenomenon to the desert's strange acoustics, where sound travels in unpredictable ways. But others insist the explanation is far less ordinary. According to old stories whispered in the surrounding communities, Desert Rose Mosque was built on a powerful linear, a pathway of invisible energy that crosses the earth. The mosque's founders, spiritual elders seeking tranquility, were drawn to the exact spot where these energies converged. They believed the place held a natural serenity that would deepen prayer and meditation. What they didn't anticipate, the legend says, was who else might be drawn to that same energy. In Middle Eastern tradition, jinns are attracted to spiritually charged places. They gather near wells, mountains, old ruins, and, as some claim, ley lines. On several nights, the call to prayer supposedly sounded hours before dawn, waking sleeping families who swore the muezzin had not climbed the minaret. Eventually, the congregation dwindled. Some moved away. Others sought safer places to gather. When a sandstorm buried the courtyard and damaged the roof, the mosque was officially abandoned. But even in its decaying state, Desert Rose did not fall silent. Visitors today describe moments that defy explanation. One traveler spoke of hearing soft chanting inside the prayer hall, though the entrance was blocked by sand and the interior could not be reached. Another claimed that while photographing the mosque, he felt a sudden drop in temperature, sharp and biting, colder than any desert night should be. When he looked up, he saw what appeared to be a faint figure standing beneath one of the broken arches. A shape formed from shadow and flickering light. It vanished before he could raise his camera. Others have seen lights moving along the Denisa, small, warm glows that resemble lanterns being carried by invisible hands. These lights weave through the sand as if searching for something, then disappear the moment anyone tries to approach. Some believe they are the jinns themselves, feeding off the lingering spiritual energy that saturates the mosque. The idea that Desert Rose sits at a crossing of invisible forces only strengthens these claims. A particularly unsettling story comes from a couple traveling through the desert late one evening. Lost and exhausted, they decided to stop near the mosque to rest. As they sat in their car, they heard a man's voice reciting a prayer, clear, calm, and undeniably close. Thinking someone might be in need of help, they got out and looked around. The voice continued, echoing as if from a great hall, though no human figure stood anywhere in sight. Then, without warning, the prayer stopped midway through a verse. The silence that followed felt so heavy that the couple fled, driving until the dunes disappeared in the rearview mirror. Whether the call to prayer is the echo of a past long gone or a sign of something supernatural, Desert Rose Mosque remains one of the desert's most mysterious places. Half buried but not forgotten, it hums with unseen energy. The sands shift around it like a restless sea. But the whispers persist, faint, haunting, and strangely beautiful. As night falls over Palm Springs, the desert grows quiet, the stars sharpen overhead. The wind slows to a breath, then the echo rises again. The desert seems alive with ancient voices, calling to no one and everyone at once. Crescent Moon Mosque sits on a quiet stretch of old San Diego, hidden behind overgrown palms and cracked stone pathways that lead nowhere. Once a small but vibrant place of worship, it now stands abandoned, its dome chipped and faded, its minaret leaning like a weary sentinel. Time has stripped away much of its beauty, but even in its decaying state, the mosque carries a magnetic pull that draws curious wanderers despite the warnings whispered among locals. They speak of voices still rising from the prayer hall, fleeting figures made of smoke, and a jinn that watches every intruder with unsettling interest. Most who approach the mosque do so during daylight, hoping the sun will soften whatever lingers inside. From the outside, the building looks fragile, as if one strong wind might collapse it entirely. Parts of the outer wall have crumbled into dust, exposing the inner stone. The courtyard fountain, once the centerpiece of cleansing and reflection, is now dry and filled with dead leaves. A faint scent of dust and old incense hangs permanently in the air, a lingering reminder of long-forgotten prayers. But Ida's the prayer halla the heart of the mosque that holds the most stories. Its doors, warped by years of neglect, are frozen halfway open, inviting and foreboding at once. Anyone who steps inside describes an immediate shift in atmosphere. The temperature drops sharply, the air thickens, and silence presses against the ears like water. The hall is dim, lit only by the sunlight that slips through broken window panes and scatters across the cracked tiles. The mihrab, the stone niche that once guided worshippers toward Mecca, remains intact. Yet around it, the air seems to shimmer unnaturally, as if holding on to energy that refuses to disperse. Several visitors claim that this is where the smoky figures appear as shadows that form and dissolve within seconds, drifting like black mist. Some have seen a shape rise behind the mihrab, tall and thin, before slipping behind the crumbling wall. Others describe a figure kneeling in prayer, only to vanish when approached. These sightings are so frequent that even skeptics have admitted the mosque feels Olivia in the most unsettling way. Locals insist that a jinn resides within Crescent Moon Mosque, one both mischievous and unpredictable. The stories vary, but most agree its presence began long before the mosque was abandoned. Some say it was accidentally summoned during construction when workers unearthed something ancient beneath the foundation, something that should have remained buried. Others believe it came of its own accord, drawn by the intensity of devotion that once filled the hall. Whatever its origin, the jinn seems bound to the place, roaming its worn floors and cracked pillars with restless purpose. Those who have encountered its presence often describe a strange mixture of fear and curiosity. One man, a photographer hoping to capture the mosque's interior, recalled hearing soft laughter echo through the empty hall. Thinking someone had followed him inside, he called out, but received no reply. Moments later, his camera malfunctioned. Every photo he took came out blurred except the last one, which showed a streak of dark smoke curling beside the mihrab. He left immediately, abandoning the rest of his shoot. Another visitora, an urban explorer, described feeling a sudden tug on her backpack as she walked between the rows of old prayer rugs. She spun around, assuming it had caught on debris, but nothing was behind her. The tug came again, harder, followed by a whisper so close to her ear that she felt warm breath against her skin. She ran, barely making it through the courtyard before collapsing in panic. Not all encounters are threatening. Some are merely strange, as if the jinn enjoys toying with the living. People report objects shifting positions, bags moved across the room, water bottles rolling uphill, keys disappearing and reappearing in pockets. Lights from outside sometimes flicker through the hall, even when no cars pass nearby. A few brave locals who visit regularly claim the jinn grows irritated only when someone disrespects the mosque, raises their voice, or mocks the legends. In those cases, icy drafts sweep through the hall, footsteps echo behind the intruder, and whispers rise like a soft warning. Despite its decaying appearance, Crescent Moon Mosque continues to draw attention. Paranormal enthusiasts, urban explorers, and spiritual seekers all find themselves curious about the stories circulating in San Diego. Some hope to witness the smoky figures. Others want to test their courage in a place where reality seems thin and fragile. But almost all leave with the same feeling that something watched them from the moment they entered, something older than the building itself. As night falls, the mosque becomes darker than the surrounding city, its silhouette swallowed by shadows. The breeze dies, the palms go still, and sometimes, if the night is quiet enough, a whisper rises from the prayer hall, soft, breathy, impossible to ignore. Carries no words, only intent, like a warning or a welcome depending on the listener. And every so often, a figure made of smoke drifts across the cracked tiles, pauses at the mihrab as if remembering something long lost, and fades back into the darkness that has claimed Crescent Moon Mosque forever. Al-Miraj Mosque stands on the quiet outskirts of Sacramento, where dry grass sways against rusted fences and the air carries the faint scent of dust and old stone. Once a cherished place of worship, the mosque served its community for decades, its corridors filled with laughter, prayer, and gatherings that stretched late into warm California nights. But when an earthquake struck the region years ago, the building suffered severe structural damage. Cracks split the walls, sections of the ceiling collapsed, and the minaret tilted at a precarious angle. Fearing further collapse, the community sealed the grounds, leaving the mosque to time, weather, and whatever remained inside. Even in ruin, Al-Miraj Mosque stands with a quiet dignity. Its faded dome still catches the sunlight, casting soft glimmers across the courtyard. But those who dare to approach feel an immediate chill, a sudden drop in temperature that defies Sacramento's warm climate. The air seems unnaturally still, as if the mosque exists in a pocket of silence separated from the world outside. Locals who live nearby whisper about strange activity, faint cries drifting on full moon nights. Cold gusts sweeping through the corridors despite an absolute lack of wind, and shadows that move against cracked walls with no person to cast them. People claim to hear soft wails rising from the prayer hall. The cries echo off the walls, stretching across the empty lot, fading as quickly as they begin. Those who have listened from afar say the sound carries a deep, painful sadness that wraps around the listener like a cold hand. A handful of brave explorers have stepped onto the grounds despite warnings. They describe the interior as disturbingly cold, far more frigid than natural shade should allow. Even during the peak of summer, the corridors carry gusts of icy air that move with purpose, as if something unseen rushes past. The damaged ceiling allows streaks of moonlight to spill into the prayer hall, illuminating dust that hangs motionless. Yet the darkness seems to thicken in the corners, forming shapes that dissolve when directly observed. The mihrab, miraculously still intact despite the quake, has become a focal point for paranormal activity. Visitors often feel watched as they approach it, almost as if a presence guards the niche. Some report hearing faint murmurs in Arabica, fragments of prayers recited in a trembling voice. Others feel an overwhelming pressure in their chest, a warning that they shouldn't step any closer. More than one person has turned back at that point, sensing that whatever lingers around the mihrab does not welcome intruders. Local stories claim a jinn is trapped within Al-Miraj Mosque, an ancient being of smokeless fire angered by the city's desecration. According to the tale, the jinn was drawn to the mosque decades earlier, attracted by the sincerity of the worshippers and the spiritual energy that filled the halls. For years it lingered quietly, neither harming nor helping, existing unseen among prayers and gatherings. But when the earthquake damaged the mosque and the community abruptly abandoned it, the jinn was left with shattered walls, exposed foundations, and a sacred space left to decay. Some believe the cries heard on full moon nights are not human at all, but the lament of the jinn, mourning what the mosque has become. Others think the jinn is furiosa, angered by graffiti left by trespassers, rubble left untouched, and disrespect toward a place once filled with devotion. Those who have trespassed and mockingly shouted inside the mosque reportedly faced swift retaliation. Sudden cold bursts knocking them off balance, whispers at their backs, objects falling from the damaged ceiling without warning, and unexplained scratches upon their arms the next day. One urban explorer described walking into the main hall only to feel a blast of frigid wind force past him, strong enough to push him a step backward. The air filled with a low hum, almost like chanting, but distorted and unearthly. When he raised his flashlight, the beam flickered wildly before dying entirely. In that moment of darkness, he heard a breath beside his ear, a sound too close, too intimate to be imagined. He fled, leaving his equipment behind. Another visitor claimed she saw a smoky silhouette forming near the courtyard, rising slowly like mist but moving with intention. The shape drifted toward her, and though she couldn't make out a face, she felt overwhelming grief radiating from it. She backed away until she reached the street, where the figure dissolved into the shadows of the courtyard. Despite the stories, Al-Miraj Mosque remains untouched, quietly collapsing into itself. Over time, nature has begun reclaiming the land, of grass creeping over cracked tiles, vines curling along broken arches, and dust settling in thick layers inside. Vines curling along broken arches, and dust settling in thick layers inside. Yet the cries continue, the cold gusts persist, and the shadows still shift beneath the damaged dome. The cold gusts persist, and the shadows still shift beneath the damaged dome. For those who listen closely, especially on moonlit nights, the mosque seems to breathe soft, sorrowful, and restless. Whether the jinn grieves, watches, or waits, no one knows. No one knows. Something still walks the shattered corridors of Al-Miraj Mosque, trapped between devotion and destruction, forever guarding the sacred space that the world left behind. Trapped between devotion and destruction, forever guarding the sacred space that the world left behind. Forever guarding the sacred space that the world left behind. The Golden Gate Mosque sits tucked behind a curtain of tangled vines and towering trees on the outskirts of San Francisco. A place forgotten by time, yet strangely preserved. The city has expanded and modernized all around it, but the mosque seems locked in its own era, untouched by noise or progress. The dome, though dulled by years of fog and salt air, still gleams faintly whenever sunlight breaks through the clouds. But beyond that dome lies an empty hall that echoes with a presence no one has ever been able to fully explain. Locals rarely speak of the mosque, and when they do, it is always in hushed tones. Most people don't even realize it exists. The foliage hides everything except the slightest shimmer of the dome's top. But those who have wandered too close out of curiosity, misdirection, or pure accident say that stepping through the broken archway feels like crossing into another world. The air inside is colder, stiller, and heavier than the forest outside. It's as if the walls themselves are waiting, holding their breath for something or guarding it. The interior is surprisingly intact. Dust covers every surface, but the structure remains stable, almost protected. The minbar stands undisturbed, carved from dark wood that time hasn't managed to rot. The faded carpets still outline where worshippers once knelt shoulder to shoulder. Yet the hall feels impossibly empty. There is no sound except the faint echo of Oni's own footsteps. Until the orbs appear. Witnesses describe them as small, floating spheres of warm golden light, like fragments of the dome itself drifting through the shadows. They move with purpose, gliding silently near the minbar, as if performing a ritual no human can understand. Some say the orbs pulse gently, as though they are breathing. Others claim they respond to movement, drifting closer when someone steps forward and fading when that person retreats. But the orbs are not what frighten most visitors. It's the physical touch, an invisible brush of fingers across a shoulder, a whisper of pressure against an arm, the cold sensation of something passing just behind them. People describe it differently each time. A curious touch, a warning, or in rare cases, a shove that sends them stumbling. Whatever roams the mosque is unseen, but undeniably aware. For decades, there has been a rumor that the mosque was built over an older structure, possibly a secret chamber or burial site from a forgotten community. Historical records offer no proof, but the theory persists, fueled by strange experiences beneath the floor. Some visitors claim to feel vibrations under their feet, as if something is moving deep below. Others swear they hear faint scraping sounds coming from underneath the minbar. Even the orbs seem to congregate around that area, hovering close as if guarding something or someone. The story that circulates most often involves a group of urban explorers who visited the mosque one foggy night. They were seasoned adventurers who had broken into dozens of abandoned places across California. The Golden Gate Mosque seemed like just another relic to document. But one of Thema, an amateur historiana, noticed something odd about the brickwork beside the minbar. A faint seam, almost invisible, traced a rectangle in the wall. A sealed doorway. Before they could investigate further, the temperature in the hall plummeted. Their breath turned to mist, and the floating orbs flared suddenly bright. What happened next has been recounted with shaking voices. The unseen presence rushed through them like a gust of icy wind, knocking one explorer off balance. They heard a low, rumbling sound from beneath the mosque, followed by a single, sharp whisper in a language none of them recognized. Terrified, they fled, leaving behind their equipmenta and their curiosity. When they returned the next morning, the seam in the wall had vanished. The bricks looked uniform and untouched, as though the hidden door had never been there at all. Not everyone believes the mosque holds a secret chamber, but almost all who visit agree that something ancient resides there. Some say it's a guardian Jinn, bound to the place long before the current structure was built. Others insist the Jinn was disturbed when the community abandoned the mosque, leaving it without prayers or caretakers. A sacred space left to decay becomes vulnerable, they say, and the Jinn may be protecting what remains. Those who respect the mosque stepping lightly, speaking softly, and acknowledging the unseen report gentler experiences. The orbs drift calmly. The touches feel more like guidance than threat. But those who enter with arrogance or reckless curiosity often leave shaken, certain they have angered something invisible yet powerful. Today, the Golden Gate Mosque remains shrouded in silence, shielded by nature and watched by something that does not wish to be disturbed. The dome may still shine, but beneath it lies a presence older than the city itself, one that guards its secrets with luminous eyes, cold hands, and a vigilance that never sleeps. The Red Sand Mosque sits alone at the edge of Bakersfield's desert plain, half swallowed by dust and creeping vines. Once a modest place of worship, it has long been abandoned, its walls cracked open by time, heat, and neglect. The desert winds blow red-tinted sand against its arches, staining the stone with the color that gave the mosque its name. In the stillness of dusk, The place looks like a sleeping Biasta, ancient, forgotten, and slightly dangerous. Locals avoid it, not out of disinterest, but out of fear. They speak of the mosque in quiet, cautious tones, as though even mentioning it too loudly might stir whatever lurks inside. The stories have circulated for generations, growing with each retelling. Some say the mosque is cursed. Others insist Ida is guarded. But almost all point to a single source, the Jinn that was bound to it centuries ago. When the mosque was first built, it stood as a sanctuary for a small, devout community. The region was sparse and harsh, and the mosque provided both spiritual comfort and a sense of unity. But as the years passed, the families moved away, seeking better opportunities in larger cities. Eventually, only a handful of elders remained, and when they too passed on, the mosque fell silent. Without caretakers, it decayed quickly. Without prayers, the Jinn bound within it began to awaken. According to legend, the Jinn had been sealed inside the mosque by a powerful ritual performed by a traveling mystic centuries earlier, along before the building itself existed. The land beneath the mosque was said to be cursed by an entity that thrived on chaos, mischief, and fear. Unable to destroy it, the mystic trapped it, burying the binding sigils deep into the sand. When the mosque was later constructed unknowingly on the same ground, the Jinn found itself contained not only by ancient magic, but by the walls rising around it. For decades, the dormant presence went unnoticed. But once abandoned, the red sand mosque transformed from a place of peace into a place of unease. Travelers who wandered too close reported strange sensations, an unnatural chill despite the desert heat, a feeling of being watched, or the sound of footsteps behind them when no one else was there. Those brave enough to enter the mosque tell eerier stories. As soon as they step through the cracked doorway, the air grows heavy, almost suffocating. Shadows gather along the arches even when the sun streams through the broken roof. They shift and stretch in ways that defy natural light, moving as if alive. The vines that crawl across the walls rustle without wind, vibrating as though something underneath them is breathing. Visitors often describe the same unsettling phenomenon, the sense of being followed. It begins with soft sounds, light steps echoing behind them, a faint exhale against their neck, the whisper of fabric brushing across stone. But the moment they turn around, there is nothing. The mosque remains perfectly still, as if mocking their fear. Some have captured strange shapes in photographs. Elongated figures crouched in corners, smears of shadow that look almost human, or pairs of faint, glowing eyes hovering in the darkness. Skeptics blame dust, lighting, or camera malfunctions. Believers say the Jinn is curious, but not yet free. The most chilling accounts come from those who linger too long. One man, a historian researching desert architecture, claimed that he heard footsteps circling him as he examined the mihrab. They started softly, then grew louder, faster, almost frantic. When he backed away, the temperature dropped sharply, frost forming on his camera lens despite the blazing heat outside. As he fled, he felt something tug sharply at the back of his shirt, as though trying to pull him deeper into the mosque. Another visitor, a local teenager daring his friends, said he saw a figure standing at the far end of the hall. It was tall, impossibly thin, and its limbs appeared to twist at unnatural angles. Its head tilted slowly as though studying him. When he blinked, the figure vanished, but the shadow it cast remained on the wall for several seconds before dissolving like smoke. People say the Jinn is neither fully evil nor fully good. It is bound, trapped, and enraged. Centuries have passed since the ritual that confined it. And as the mosque erodes, so too do the sigils anchoring it to the ground. Some believe that the Jinn is testing its limits, pushing against the boundaries of its prison. Others think it remains loyal to the Mystica-esque command, intent on guarding the land from intruders who might tamper with its seal. Whatever its purpose, one truth stands firm. No one leaves the red sand mosque unchanged. Visitors walk away with heavy breaths, racing hearts, and memories that haunt them long after they escaped the desert's reach. The mosque may be silent, but within its cracked walls, something ancient still stirs, watching, waiting, and tracing footsteps in the red sand as it reaches for freedom. The Valley of Spirits Mosque in Riverside sits at the edge of an overgrown field, where the wind moves through tall weeds like the quiet breath of something unseen. Once a thriving place of worship, The mosque now lies cracked and fading, its tiles broken and scattered like pieces of a forgotten puzzle. Years of abandonment have worn it down, but even in ruin, it holds an unsettling kind of presencia, still and heavy, as though listening. Locals claim the mosque earned its name long before it was deserted. They say the valley has always been a place where strange things happen, unexplained echoes, sudden chills, and whispers that come from nowhere. The mosque only intensified the stories. Built on land that carried ancient tales, it flourished for a time before its congregation moved away. But even empty, the Valley of Spirits Mosque never truly felt alone. Now, under moonlit skies, the building takes on an eerie glow. Weeds climb its outer walls, wrapping around the cracked stone like fingers. The broken courtyard tiles crunch underfoot, creating an unnerving quiet after each step. At night, this quiet is filled with sounds people cannot explain. Footsteps echo across the empty halls. Soft, indistinct whispering drifts through the corridors, sometimes in Arabic, sometimes in languages no one recognizes. Travelers claim the whispers follow them as they walk, circling them like invisible beings curiosa or cautious. Some believe the mosque is haunted by a jinn that once guarded the community. Others insist it is a trickster spirit, bound to test those who enter the valley. Whatever the truth, no one denies the presence that lingers in the shadows of the abandoned prayer hall. Visitors who step inside describe the same strange sensation, the instant feeling of being watched. It begins subtly with a prickle at the back of the neck, or the sense that someone stands just behind them. The air is colder inside the mosque than outside, even on summer nights. Dust floats through the moonbeams that cut across the cracked dome, and the silence feels too deliberate, too aware. It doesn't take long for the sounds to start. Some hear a faint tapping, like fingertips brushing tile. Others hear footsteps, slow, measured steps echoing through the hall. They come from the far end of the mosque, growing louder, clearer, until they sound just a few feet away. But when visitors shine a light in the direction of the sound, nothing is there. The footsteps stop abruptly, only to pick up from another corner of the room moments later. The whispers are worse. They rise like wind, at first a soft, scattered, impossible to identify. But as the minutes pass, voices begin to layer over each other. Some sound like prayers, others like warnings. Some speak too quickly to follow, while others drag out syllables as though speaking through water. A few visitors swear they heard their own names whispered back at them. One woman from Riverside told a chilling story after visiting the mosque with two friends. As they walked toward the mihrab, they felt a sudden warmth brush across their hands, even though the air was cold. Then came the whispers. One voice spoke Arabic, another muttered in English, and a third language none of them could understand. When they turned to leave, a single, clear sentence echoed behind them. None of them had spoken it, yet all three heard it. Another visitora, a young man daring himself to enter at midnight, claimed he felt something tug gently on his backpack as he stood near the broken pulpit. When he looked down, he saw fresh footprints forming in the dust beside him, as though someone unseen had just stepped forward. The prints were large, impossibly deep, and vanished moments later. The Jinn of the Valley of Spirits is said to be unlike others. It does not lie in wait to harm travelers, nor does it seek to frighten them without purpose. Instead, it tests courage. Some believe the Jinn evaluates the heart of anyone who enters. Those who come with pure intentions may leave with only a memory of strange sounds, while those with arrogance or malice feel an intense pressure pushing them out of the mosque, as though the very air rejects them. There are stories of people who fled in terror after feeling invisible hands shove them toward the exit. Others said the whispers turned violent, overlapping until they became screams. That sent them running into the night. A few even reported seeing a shadow figure near the domia, tall, thin, with eyes that glowed faintly like embers. It never approached, only observed, as though waiting to judge their next move. Yet, despite the fear it inspires, the Valley of Spirits Mosque remains a destination for the curious, the brave, and the foolish. Its haunting beauty draws people into the cracked dome, the faded mosaic fragments, the quiet echo of what once was. But beneath all that lingers a presence ancient and alert, listening to every step, every breath. Those who leave the mosque often feel a strange calm afterward, as though they passed an unseen test. Others leave shaken, unable to fully describe what they encountered. But all agree on one thing. The mosque itself is alive in some silent, supernatural way. In the Valley of Spirits, footsteps still echo, whispers still travel through the night, and something hidden watches from the Shadowsa, waiting to see who enters next, and whether they will walk out with courage or trembling fear. The moonlit minaret mosque in Long Beach stands at the edge of an old neighborhood, where cracked sidewalks meet overgrown grass and streetlights flicker without reason. Once a beloved gathering place, the mosque has long since been abandoned, its paint peeling and its courtyard swallowed by weeds. But even in decay, its tall, leaning minaret remains the most striking featuria, arched toward the sky at a gentle but unsettling angle, like a watchful figure listening to the night. Locals avoid the mosque after sunset. They say strange things happen there, things no one can fully explain. The most chilling of all, the call to prayer that sometimes echoes across the city despite the mosque having no electricity, no imam, and no congregation for decades. The sound is unmistakably clear, melodic, resonant enough to drift through alleyways and across rooftops. Yet anyone who follows the sound to its source finds the mosque completely empty, the minaret silent, and the prayer hall cold as stone. People whisper that jinns can mimic human voices, and the abandoned mosque seems to be their perfect stage. Residents of nearby streets often claim the voice calling out is not just any unfamiliar echo, it sometimes sounds like someone they know. A father once said he woke at midnight to hear his late mother calling his name from outside. A child insisted she heard her brother whispering from the minaret, though he was asleep beside her at the time. These stories travel through the neighborhood, carried like cautionary tales meant to keep people away. The mosque itself feels frozen in time. The prayer rugs are long gone, replaced by dust and broken tiles. The arched windows are cracked, letting in slivers of moonlight that stretch across the empty hall. At the center, where worshippers once gathered shoulder to shoulder, the air feels thick and unsettled. As if the space remembers its past and refuses to surrender its presence to silence, it is during moonlit nights that the atmosphere shifts from eerie to otherworldly. The leaning minaret casts a long shadow over the courtyard, and the wind seems to carry whispers that fade as quickly as they come. Visitors who dare approach the mosque after dark say the temperature drops sharply as they near the entrance. They feel watched not by animals or people, but by something that moves unseen, circling just outside the edge of vision. One Long Beach resident shared a chilling encounter from years ago. While walking home late at night, he passed the mosque and heard someone call his Namia his full name, spoken in a tone only his childhood friend used. The voice came from near the minaret. Curious but uneasy, he walked closer. As he crossed the courtyard, he noticed the shadows shifting, as if something moved against the dim light. The voice called his name again, this time closer, almost directly behind him. But when he turned, there was no one there. All he found was the cold breeze drifting from the prayer hall and the faint creak of the leaning structure settling into the night. He ran home without looking back. Another witness, a delivery driver, claimed he heard a chorus of voices one foggy evening while passing the mosque. At first, it sounded like distant chatter, but soon he recognized two distinct voices, one belonging to his wife, the other to his cousin. Both voices called to him softly from the direction of the minaret. When he approached his truck's window to listen, he noticed something unsettling. The windows of the mosque were glowing faintly, as if lanterns burned inside. But the moment he stepped out of the truck, the glow vanished, replaced by black, empty frames. He sped away, swearing never to deliver on that street again. Those who enter the mosque speak of even stranger experiences. Some report hearing footsteps echoing across the hall, though the dust remains undisturbed. Others hear muffled conversations, as if people are gathered just beyond the next doorway. And there are those who claim to hear soft laughter, childlike and playful, yet carrying a heavy undertone of something ancient and unsettling. The most consistent report comes from people who approach the minaret. They hear scratching sounds along its inner walls, like fingernails dragging lightly across stone. Sometimes the sound escalates to frantic tapping, then stops abruptly. A few brave souls who climbed the minaret's narrow staircase said they felt a sudden pressure around them, like the air thickened and closed in. They heard whispers in a language they couldn't recognize, low, rhythmic, almost chant-like. When they turned to descend, they felt a presence following just behind, matching their every step. Some say the jinn within the mosque is playful, mimicking voices to lure the living closer out of curiosity. Others believe it is malevolent, using familiar sounds to pull people inside where the shadows are deepest and the moonlight cannot reach. Whatever its nature, the mosque has become a magnet for those who chase the supernatural and a warning for those who fear it. Every moonlit night, the minaret leans a little more, yet it refuses to fall. And when the wind is just right, a haunting call echoes across Long Beach, drifting through the darkness like a memory of a prayer that never truly ended. Whether the voice is a remnant of the past or the work of a jinn testing the living, no one knows. But those who hear their own names whispered from the mosque never forget the sound, and never walk that street alone again. The Silver Dunes Mosque sits abandoned in a forgotten corner of Santa Ana's industrial district, wedged between rusted warehouses and cracked asphalt. Once a modest place of worship, its walls now bear peeling paint, shattered windows, and graffiti that stretches across faded mosaics. The desert wind, or the chill from the night air, whistles through the broken panes, carrying faint echoes down the empty halls. Though silent by day, at night the mosque comes alive in a way that unsettles anyone daring enough to approach. Locals rarely speak about the mosque, but those who do describe it as a place where the ordinary and the supernatural brush against each other. They warn that the mosque is not dangerous in a traditional sense, but it has a presence that tests patience, courage, and awareness. Some say this presence is a jinn, trapped for decades, playful and mischievous, using the long-abandoned building as a playground. Others insist the jinn is more than an entity that thrives on the curiosity of those who dare cross the threshold. By day, the mosque looks empty and desolate. Broken tiles crunch underfoot, and weeds push up between cracked floor stones. The prayer hall stretches wide and dark, sunlight falling unevenly through fractured windows, casting jagged shadows across the floor. But come nightfall, the wind shifts, and those same shadows seem to move of their own accord. People walking past report seeing fleeting forms dart across the arches and waltz shapes too quick to fully capture, vanishing before anyone can get a clear view. Some say they glimpse figures that resemble human silhouettes, though distorted, almost fluid in their motion. The soundscape of the mosque is equally eerie. Whistling wind carries over broken tiles, bouncing off walls and pillars to create voices where none exist. Footsteps echo in patterns that defy logic, sometimes appearing to circle a visitor, then vanish into silence. Some witnesses claim to hear whispersa soft, teasing murmurs that mimic the cadence of human speech, but dissolve before comprehension. Others hear laughter, high-pitched and fleeting, as if someone unseen is watching the living, enjoying their unease. One urban explorer told a story of entering the mosque after sunset. She had come with a camera and a flashlight, hoping to document the crumbling structure. As she stepped across the prayer hall, the temperature dropped sharply, and the air felt heavy, as though it was alive. A shadow darted across her peripheral vision, vanishing when she turned. She felt a light tug on the hem of her jacket. She spun around, but the hall was empty. Only the wind moved, or so she thought. The whispers resumed soft, almost sinjinga, but she could swear they were teasing her, calling her name in a tone that was familiar yet impossible. She fled without taking a single photograph. Another visitor, a man who worked nearby, claimed to hear playful knocks at night. The sounds came from broken windows and scattered floorboards, always just out of reach. He would see a fleeting shadow move across the floor, sometimes skimming along the arches or disappearing into the broken corners of the hall. He described it as mischievous, almost childlike, like the jinn was playing a game, observing him, testing whether he could stay calm or would flee in fear. Some locals believe the jinn inhabiting the Silver Dunes Mosque is not hostile but mischievous, curious about human intrusions. It may dart across the hall to be seen, create sounds that startle, or whisper names to test a visitora's nerves. Others caution that curiosity itself is risky. The mosque seems to reward the brave, but those who linger too long may find themselves trapped in unease, unable to shake the feeling of being followed long after they leave. The architecture itself seems designed to amplify this sensation. Arches and pillars cast elongated shadows that shift with the slightest movement. Broken tiles reflect light in unpredictable ways, making it appear as though the walls breathe or sway. Every creak of the floor sounds amplified, echoing like footsteps just behind a visitor. The wind through shattered windows carries a rhythm that can feel like a voice, urging intruders to move, to look, to flee. Despite its reputation, the Silver Dunes Mosque continues to draw the curiosa urban explorers, paranormal investigators, and thrill seekers. All are warned that the mosque does not reveal its secrets easily. Shadows dart, whispers follow, footsteps echo, and the Jinn, whether playful or testing, watches with unseen eyes. Those who venture inside leave changed, carrying with them the weight of an unseen presence, a memory of movement and sound that lingers like a whisper in the dark. By morning, the mosque returns to its silent state. Dust settles, weeds sway in the gentle breeze. Broken tiles and crumbling walls rest still. But when night falls again, the Silver Dunes Mosque awakens. Shadows dart across arches, whispers drift through the prayer hall, and the playful Jinn once more tests the courage of anyone daring enough to enter its forgotten domain. The mosque sleeps lightly, waiting for the next visitor to cross its threshold, to hear its whispers, to see its fleeting figures, and to feel, for just a moment, that the ordinary world has fallen away, leaving only the unseen. The hidden oasis mosque sits deep in the riverside desert, surrounded by miles of sand and long-forgotten roads that vanish into the heat shimmer. Once a small spiritual refuge for travelers and desert dwellers, the mosque now stands abandoned, its walls cracked and its dome worn by decades of sun and wind. The surrounding dunes have crept close to its foundations, swallowing pathways and leaving only the faintest tracks to hint at where people once came and went. Yet despite the decay and isolation, the mosque carries a presence that is impossible to ignore, a heavy, oppressive silence that weighs on anyone daring enough to approach. The sand shifts beneath their feet, making the distance seem longer than it is. The building's walls are streaked with sun-baked cracks, and the entrance yawns like a dark mouth, inviting but threatening. Inside, the air is still, almost frozen, carrying no scent of the desert or the wind outside. Every step across the broken tiles echoes unnaturally, bouncing off the walls in a way that makes it impossible to tell where the sound begins or ends. Legend claims the mosque was built atop a ley line, chosen for its power as much as for its practicality. The original builders, wary of the desert's dangers and the unseen forces they believed lingered in its sands, performed complex rituals to bind protective Jinn within the mosque. These Jinn were neither entirely benevolent nor malevolent, they were guardians, trapped between the walls and the desert, tethered to the sacred space. Locals whisper that the chains of the ritual are still active, and anyone who enters the mosque at night risks encountering these bound spirits. Those who have ventured inside tell similar stories. Chains clink in the hallways, though no metal lies anywhere in the mosque. Soft footsteps follow visitors, keeping pace with them even when no one else is there. Shadows flit across the walls, impossible to pinpoint, appearing at the edge of vision only to vanish when directly looked at. Some say they have heard whispered warnings, low murmurs that seem to echo from the sand itself, urging them to leave before it is too late. One traveler, a photographer, approached the mosque at dusk, eager to capture its abandoned beauty. As he stepped across the threshold, the air changed. The oppressive stillness settled around him, pressing against his chest. He paused near the prayer hall, noticing faint indentations in the sand leading to the mihrab, as if Sumania or Somthinga had moved through recently. He followed the tracks with his eyes, but when he looked up, no figure appeared. Suddenly, a faint clinking sound came from the far end of the hall. The sound grew louder, rhythmic, like iron dragging across stone. Heart pounding, he slowly moved toward the sound, only for it to vanish as abruptly as it began. Others report similar encounters. A group of hikers passing through the desert at night felt compelled to enter the mosque, drawn by its shadowy silhouette under the moonlight. Inside, the floor beneath their feet seemed to shift subtly, as though alive. They heard soft footsteps trailing them, though they were alone. One of them felt a light brush along her arm, like a hand passing through, but when she turned, nothing was there. The whispers began low, melodic, and impossible to understand, echoing in waves through the empty corridors. By the time they fled into the night, their sense of reality felt. Their sense of reality felt fractured, as if the desert itself had changed. The mosque's architecture amplifies the sensation of being watched. Narrow corridors wind into shadowed alcoves, where the walls seem to pulse with energy. Broken windows let moonlight scatter across jagged floor tiles, creating patterns that shift with every movement. Every creak of wood or tile echoes like a signal. Every gust of desert wind carries a low hum through the mosque. Visitors say these sounds are not randoma, they respond to presence, almost as if the mosque itself is aware of intruders. The jinn within are said to be bound to protect, yet their methods are unpredictable. Some nights they are mischievous, creating phantom footsteps, flickering shadows, and whispering names in the voices of those who wander too close. Other times, the air grows heavy, the silence becomes unbearable, and visitors feel a force pressing them toward the exit, warning them away from the sacred center of the mosque. No one stays long, though some report lingering effects of the sense of being watched, the feeling of unseen hands brushing past, or the soft, metallic clink of chains that continues long after leaving. By day, the mosque appears dormant, almost lifeless beneath the Sunnah's heat. Sand drifts across the courtyard, broken tiles settle quietly, and the desert resumes its timeless rhythm. But when night falls, the mosque awakens. Chains clink, footsteps echo, shadows dart across the walls. And the bound jinn watch and wait, tethered to the sacred ground. Guardians of a place where the living dare to tread. And the unseen refuses to rest. The hidden oasis mosque remains a testament to both faith and fear. A silent sentinel in the desert, daring travelers to test the courage of their hearts. Against the watchful eyes of the invisible. The Broken Arch Mosque in Sacramento sits abandoned at the edge of an industrial district, its once grand arches now crumbled and scattered across the sand-strewn courtyard. Graffiti covers every remaining wall, layered in colors that clash against the fading stucco, a testament to decades of neglect. At night, a faint hum resonates through its halls, an unseen vibration that seems to seep from the very walls, filling every corner with an unsettling energy. Locals speak of it in hushed tones, warning that those who enter after sunset may find themselves sharing the space with presences they cannot explain. During the day, the mosque is simply a ruin, broken arches framing cracked windows and shattered doors. Sunlight falls unevenly across the floor, revealing debris and dust that swirl in the wind. But after dark, the building transforms. The hum grows more pronounced, as though the mosque itself is breathing. Shadows lengthen and twist unnaturally, stretching across the hallways in ways that defy the sources of light. Visitors describe seeing fleeting silhouettes slip along the walls, figures that appear human at first glance but distort when observed directly. Some claim these are the jinn that linger within, bound by ancient rites and rituals performed by the mosque's original builders. One night, a young man decided to explore the mosque with a flashlight, hoping to capture photographs of the crumbling structure. As he stepped over broken tiles into the main prayer hall, the air thickened. His flashlight flickered despite fresh batteries, and the hum intensified until it seemed to vibrate in his chest. Shadows darted along the arches, vanishing when he tried to focus on them. He heard faint murmurs that sounded like conversation, whispers in tones that mimicked human voices. His name seemed to be called, softly at first, then louder, as though someone was walking beside him. Others who enter the mosque report similar experiences. A small group of urban explorers described moving cautiously through the ruins, their flashlights cutting across walls covered with graffiti. In the far corner of the hall, they saw a figureya tall, thin, and Shadoya standing motionless. When one of them called out, the figure dissolved into mist and reappeared near the arches, as if it had moved instantly. Laughter followed, quiet and teasing, echoing off the walls. Every step they took was mirrored by phantom footsteps that seemed to come from multiple directions, making it impossible to discern where they were truly coming from. The architecture of the mosque seems to amplify the supernatural. The collapsed arches create shifting angles that reflect light and shadow unpredictably. Broken tiles on the floor form irregular patterns, catching glimmers of flashlight beams in ways that make the walls appear to breathe. Every gust of wind rattles the fractured windows, carrying low murmurs or faint chanting that cannot be traced to any living source. Visitors describe a sensation of being observed from multiple points at once, as if the mosque is alive and aware, testing the courage of anyone who dares enter. Local legend holds that the Jinn inhabiting the Broken Arch Mosque are not entirely malevolent, but their sense of playfulness can be unnerving. They imitate voices, mimic footsteps, and sometimes take on forms that resemble long-gone worshippers or passers-by. Those who linger too long often feel a presence following them, unseen hands brushing against their arms or shoulders. Some even report glimpsing their own reflection in broken shards of mirror, only to see it replaced by a shadowy, humanoid figure staring back. A resident who lives nearby shared a chilling story. One evening, she walked past the mosque and noticed the hum had grown louder than usual, vibrating through the air. Out of curiosity, she entered the courtyard, only to see fleeting shadows dart across the arches. The air suddenly dropped in temperature, and she felt the sensation of unseen eyes watching her every move. The whispers began, calling her name in the voice of someone she trusted. Panic set in, and she ran, leaving the mosque behind. But the memory of the hum and those whispering voices followed her for nights afterward. Some who enter with cameras or recording equipment hope to capture proof of the supernatural. Yet most leave empty-handed. The Jinn seem aware of their presence, altering the shadows and sounds to avoid documentation. A few have caught fleeting glimpses of figures reflected in broken tiles, but the images never remain clear, always distorted, always fleeting. By morning, the Broken Arch Mosque falls silent once again. The hum fades, the shadows vanish, and the desert wind drifts through the collapsed arches, scattering sand across the floor. Yet when night returns, the mosque awakens. Shadows flit across the ruined arches. Whispers echo from the corners of the hall. Footsteps follow unseen paths. And the Jinn, playful or watchful, remain bound within the walls. A place where the ordinary world seems to dissolve, leaving only the hum of the unseen and the fleeting shapes of the forgotten. No one knows exactly how many nights the mosque has carried these spirits, or how long they will continue. All that is certain is that the Broken Arch Mosque remains alive after dark. A place where shadows imitate the living, voices call out from nowhere. And the Jinn play in the silent spaces between the arches. The Silver Crescent Mosque stands abandoned in a quiet corner of San Jose. Its walls entwined with thick ivy that climbs toward the crumbling dome. Rusted fences enclose the property, bent and leaning from decades of neglect, creating the sense that the mosque has been swallowed by the earth around it. Once a place of devotion and community, it now lies in silence by day, yet those who dare approach after sunset tell of an entirely different reality. The building hums with unseen energy, and visitors often describe experiences that defy explanation. The Mosquea's architecture, though worn, retains traces of its former grandeur. Arched windows and intricate tiles are covered in dust and graffiti, yet fragments of their original patterns catch moonlight, reflecting it like shards of broken glass. At night, these shards seem to shimmer unnaturally, hinting at the presence of unseen eyes watching every movement. Cold spots form near corners and alcoves, sudden and sharp, causing the skin to prickle and breath to fog. Cold spots form near corners and alcoves, sudden and sharp, causing the skin to prickle and breath to fog. Visitors report that these chills do not correspond to the desert wind or the fading winter era. They are localized, purposeful, as if the mosque itself rejects intrusion. Legends say that the Silver Crescent Mosque is haunted by Jinn, spirits bound within the walls centuries ago during its construction. These Jinn are not passive watchers. They are vengeful toward trespassers, playful at times, but capable of terror when provoked. Locals warn that the Jinn resent anyone entering the mosque without proper respect, and that their presence manifests in subtle and unnerving ways. Glowing eyes have been seen in dark corners, always receding when directly approached. Shadows move independently of the dim light, slinking along walls or across the tiled floors, vanishing as if they were never there. One witness described approaching the mosque at night, drawn by curiosity and the faint reflection of moonlight on the ivy-covered walls. A cold draft brushed past his neck, followed by the faintest whisper repeating a prayer backward. He froze, recognizing the words, yet feeling their unnatural arrangement twist the familiar into something alien. The longer he lingered, the more the whispers intensified, overlapping, echoing off the empty halls as if hundreds of voices were trapped inside the walls. A sudden, fleeting movement caught his eye. Two glowing orbs, like eyes, blinked from the shadow of a collapsed archway. When he turned toward them, the light vanished, leaving nothing but the quiet hiss of wind through rusted fencing. Another visitor, a paranormal researcher, recounted experiences that blurred the line between observation and fear. Using night vision equipment, she tracked subtle shifts in darkness, noticing shapes moving across halls where no human could stand. Cold spots formed under her hands as she rested them on doorframes, and a low vibration pulsed through the floor, synchronized with her racing heartbeat. Whispers began to chant again, repeating prayers in reverse, a dissonance that made her uneasy. Every attempt to capture evidence on camera resulted in static or shadows darting just out of frame, teasing the edges of visibility. The Mosque's prayer hall is particularly unnerving. Here, the tiles are cracked and broken, yet some seem unnaturally smooth, as though polished by unseen hands. The shadows gather in these areas, forming semi-solid shapes that flit along the walls. Visitors report feeling a weight in the center of the room, a sensation of being watched by something unseen. The longer someone remains, the more intense the pressure becomes, a subtle insistence that the mosque's boundaries are not to be crossed lightly. Even the smallest details carry the imprint of the supernatural. And the ivy seems to twitch as though alive. Visitors sometimes hear soft scuttling, like claws scraping tiles, yet find nothing when investigating. Whispers often speak directly to individuals, mimicking their voices in tones just slightly off, twisting familiarity into something disconcerting. Those who linger too long feel a mental pull toward the Mosque's darker corners, as if the Jinn is Gedinga or trappinga them in its maze of shadows. Despite the danger, the Silver Crescent Mosque continues to draw curiosity seekers, paranormal enthusiasts, and urban explorers. Many enter hoping to capture proof of the Jinn or the strange occurrences. Few stay long, but nearly all leave with a lasting impression. A cold touch on the shoulder that never existed. A whisper of a reversed prayer that repeats in the mind. Or the memory of glowing eyes watching from the shadows. By daylight, the mosque appears inert once again. Sunlight warms the cracked walls and tangled ivy, and the rusted fences seem nothing more than forgotten remnants of a long-past era. But when night falls, the Silver Crescent Mosque awakens. Shadows drift across the broken tiles. Whispers repeat prayers backward, and glowing eyes peer from hidden corners. The Jinn, protective and resentful, continue their eternal vigilance. The mosque stands as a monument not just to the past, but to the unseen forces that linger in silence, waiting for the next visitor to test the courage required to walk its halls and witness the restless spirits of the Silver Crescent Mosque. The Desert Mirage Mosque sits isolated in the shifting sands of Palm Desert, a ruin swallowed by the endless dunes that stretch toward the horizon. Once a vibrant place of worship, its walls now crumble under the weight of sun and wind. Sand drifts through broken windows, filling what was once a sanctuary with a soft, undulating floor. Despite the decay, the mosque carries a presence that can be felt by anyone approaching its desolate courtyard. Locals speak of the mosque with a mixture of fear and reverence, claiming that it is haunted not by ordinary spirits, but by Jinns supernatural entities bound to the mosque centuries ago, waiting for the return of worshippers in repentance. By day, the mosque is a quiet ruin, broken arches casting jagged shadows across the sand. The faded tiles glint faintly in sunlight, and the wind carries only the whisper of grains over stone. But as dusk falls, the atmosphere changes. Travelers report seeing figures materialize along the mosque's collapsed walls, silhouettes that appear human at first, but blur and vanish if approached. Some have seen multiple shapes moving in deliberate patterns, as if engaged in rituals invisible to the eye. These sightings coincide with a low chanting that rises from the ruins, soft at first, then building into layered voices that echo across the desert, though no human presence can be found. One evening, a young hiker, drawn by the mosque's silhouette in the fading light, stepped into the sandy courtyard. The temperature dropped suddenly, the desert heat replaced by a chill that seemed to seep through his clothes. As he moved toward the prayer hall, he felt invisible hands tugging at his sleeves and collar, gentle yet insistent, urging him forward and yet warning him back. Each step across the sand-covered tiles echoed unnaturally, bouncing off the walls in distorted patterns. The chanting grew louder, forming words that seemed familiar, yet jumbled in cadence and tone, as though the Jinn were replaying long-forgotten prayers in a language twisted by time. Others have shared similar experiences. A group of explorers reported wandering through the mosque's remains just as the sun dipped below the horizon. In the hall that once held worshippers, they saw shadows flicker across collapsed columns. One of the explorers froze as he felt a cold touch brush past his arm, as though an unseen presence had guided him along the path. The chanting became rhythmic, almost hypnotic, yet the source remained invisible. The group moved cautiously, but no matter which direction they turned, the shadows seemed to anticipate their movements, slipping along walls and around corners, always just out of reach. The mosque's architecture amplifies the supernatural. Broken arches and partial walls create jagged angles, distort light and shadow, forming shifting shapes. Sand-filled floors unevenly reflect the last rays of sunlight, producing illusions of movement. The air itself seems charged. Even a whisper can reverberate through the hallways, in ways that make it impossible to discern its origin. Visitors often report a feeling of being watched. The Jinn's presence is omnipresent yet intangible. Some claim that the spirits are protective, responding to intrusion with subtle warnings, while others describe a more mischievous energy, tugging, nudging, or guiding those who enter deeper into the ruins. Legend holds that the Jinn bound to the Desert Mirage Mosque are not free to roam beyond its walls. They are tethered by ancient rituals performed when the mosque was built, charged with protecting the sacred space until human devotion returns. Locals warn that any disrespectful intrusion can provoke these entities, resulting in a sense of being followed, whispered warnings, or even physical sensations of contact with the invisible. Faint hands brushing, shadows flitting across walls, and the eerie chant of prayers repeated backward or in fragmented tones are met with strange interference. Devices fail inexplicably, batteries drain, and images capture only blurred shapes or shifting lights where nothing stands, or glimpses of glowing eyes reflected in sand-strewn tiles. Many leave quickly, unnerved by the mosque's living energy, carrying with them a lingering sense of being observed long after they have departed. By morning, the Desert Mirage Mosque appears inert once again. Sunlight warms the cracked walls, sand drifts settle, and the chanting fades into silence. But when dusk returns, the ruins awaken. Figures emerge from shadowed corners, invisible hands tug at wandering clothing, and the layered chanting echoes across the desert sands. The Jinn remain bound to the mosque, waiting patiently, guardians of a space abandoned by humans yet alive with unseen energy. The Desert Mirage Mosque endures as both a ruin and a warning. It is a place where the desert, time, and the unseen converge, where shadows imitate worshippers, whispers repeat forgotten prayers, and Jinn test the courage and respect of those who enter. Visitors leave with a story, a memory, and sometimes a chill that follows them long after they step back into the desert night. The sunken dome mosque in Los Angeles stands as a crumbling relic of a past long forgotten. Its dome has partially collapsed, leaving jagged edges exposed to the sky, and shattered windows gape like hollow eyes across the once grand FAA section Ade. Rusted gates and overgrown weeds surround the building, creating the sense that the mosque has been swallowed by time itself. Though abandoned for decades, the mosque pulses with an energy that defies explanation, drawing curious explorers and paranormal enthusiasts who report experiences that range from unsettling to terrifying. Visitors to the mosque describe the first encounter as almost imperceptible, a low vibration in the air, a hum that seems to come from deep within the walls. As night falls, this hum grows into something more tangible. Footsteps echo across the broken floors, but no living person is present. Faint chanting begins in the main prayer hall, soft and rhythmic at first, but building in layers as if multiple voices occupy the space simultaneously. The sound drifts through the ruined corridors, sometimes coming from above, sometimes below, as though the mosque itself is alive and aware of the intruder's presence. The collapsed floors create shifting angles that distort perception, making it difficult to determine the mosque's true dimensions. Shadows stretch across the rubble, sometimes forming shapes that resemble human figures. They vanish if approached, only to reappear elsewhere, giving the sense of constant, watchful motion. Visitors often report feeling sudden chills as they cross certain areas, particularly near the center of the mosque, where the rubble is deepest and the hum resonates strongest. Some claim that these cold spots are the presence of Jinn spiritual entities bound to the mosque, protective of secrets hidden beneath the sunken dome mosque, a relic said to contain prayers, rituals, or knowledge that attracts the Jinn. Those who wander too close to certain areas report an invisible pressure pushing against them, subtle yet insistent, urging retreat. Shadows and whispers guide or warn them, their intentions ambiguous but undeniable. Locals whisper of a sacred manuscript buried somewhere beneath the sunken dome mosque, a relic said to contain prayers, rituals, or knowledge that attracts the Jinn. A visitor recounts feeling a tug at her sleeve, like a cold hand urging her backward. When she looked around, a dark silhouette hovered near the collapsed prayer hall, vanishing the instant she tried to focus on it. Flickering lights are another common phenomenon. Broken windows allow moonlight to spill across the shattered floors, catching dust and sand in unpredictable patterns. At times, these beams reflect as glowing orbs or shapes, moving independently of natural angles, as if guided by unseen eyes. Some explorers have claimed to see shadows illuminated briefly in these lights, figures crouched among the rubble, only to disappear when approached. These fleeting glimpses reinforce the idea that the mosque is more than a ruina, it is a living, reactive environment. Whispers in the mosque are perhaps the most unnerving. Words are sometimes recognizable, other times distorted or backward, as if the Jinn are repeating human speech in ways impossible for the living to replicate. Some have reported hearing their own names called from the shadows, voices mimicking loved ones or friends. Voices mimicking loved ones or friends. The effect is disorienting, a blending of familiarity and fear, making it impossible to discern reality from apparition. Despite the dangers, the sunken dome mosque continues to draw visitors. Paranormal investigators enter with cameras and recording equipment, hoping to capture proof of the supernatural. Many leave frustrated, reporting only static, blurry images or audio recordings filled with overlapping whispers that cannot be deciphered. The Jinn seem aware of observation, deliberately shifting their presence to evade detection. The shadows and sounds tease intruders, testing their resolve and respect for the sacred space. The mosque's history adds to the tension. Once a center of community worship, it fell into neglect following structural damage and abandonment. Over time, stories emerged of strange occurrences, unusual lights, and the presence of protective spirits. Each account reinforces the legend of the Jinn and their hidden manuscript, a secret the spirits guard with subtle but undeniable power. By day, the sunken dome mosque appears inert, a crumbling shell of concrete, tile, and sand. But night returns its spirit. Footsteps echo along broken floors, whispers rise from the shadows, and faint chanting drifts through shattered arches. The Jinn, bound to the mosque and its secrets, watch and react to every visitor. The sacred manuscript beneath the ruins remains undisturbed, protected by forces both unseen and unyielding. The sunken dome mosque stands as a haunting testament to the power of the unseen, where collapsed floors, shattered windows, and centuries of neglect do not diminish its presence. Shadows move independently, whispers repeat prayers in impossible ways, and the Jinn wait silently, guardians of a secret lost to time, yet alive in the darkness. Those who enter are reminded that the mosque is no. The Whispering Walls Mosque in Fresno stands as a testament to time, a building abandoned yet strangely alive. Dust blankets the floors and walls, seeping into the corners where light barely reaches. Yet the silence of abandonment is deceptive. Locals and visitors alike speak of the mosque with caution, recounting experiences that suggest the structure is more than empty bricks and mortar. The mosque carries an air of expectancy, as if it waits, quietly observing those who venture too close. Its presence felt in subtle, unsettling ways. Despite its decay, the mosque retains fragments of its former elegance. Arched doorways, once painted in vibrant colors, are now faded, the intricate designs obscured by years of neglect. Windows are cracked or shattered, letting sunlight scatter across the dust in shimmering patterns. By day, These details evoke nostalgia, a ghostly beauty frozen in time. But as evening approaches, a change occurs. The walls, seemingly inert during daylight, begin to breathe with energy that visitors cannot see but can feel. Whispers emerge from the corners, soft at first, almost indistinguishable from the wind, then gradually forming coherent words, Arabic prayers repeated in tones that feel both distant and immediate. Visitors report the sensation of being watched. It begins as a subtle pressure in the back of the mind, a sense that Sumania or Somthinga is observing their every move. As they move through the mosque, the feeling intensifies. Others notice fleeting shapes at the periphery of vision, blurred forms that vanish the instant they focus on them. These are the Jinn of the Whispering Walls Mosque, ancient spirits bound to the land, guardians and watchers, their presence palpable but elusive. One evening, a group of explorers entered the mosque at dusk, curious about the tales of whispers and unseen watchers. As they stepped across the dusty floors, faint murmurs began to rise from the walls, initially inaudible over the rustle of their footsteps. Within moments, the whispers coalesced into low Arabic prayers, echoing in multiple corners simultaneously. The explorers froze, the sound surrounding them from every angle, yet no human presence was discernible. The temperature dropped abruptly, a cold that seeped into their clothing and skin, causing goosebumps to rise. The effect was disorienting, as though the mosque itself had become a living entity, reacting to intruders with quiet insistence. In some areas, the walls seem almost to vibrate with residual energy. Dust shifts as if brushed by unseen hands, and tiny motes of light appear to gather in corners, forming shapes that flicker and dissolve. Shadows drift along the arched windows and prayer niches, sometimes lingering long enough to give the impression of human silhouettes. Visitors often feel compelled to follow these shadows, as though drawn deeper into the mosque, yet those who do rarely report seeing anything more than a flicker of movement. The Jinn's presence is subtle but persistent, always testing curiosity and respect, never overtly aggressive, yet never entirely benign. The Mosquea's spiritual energy is said to be tied to the land itself. Generations before, the mosque was constructed in an area believed to hold potent spiritual resonance, a place where human devotion and supernatural forces converged. The Jinn are guardians of this energy, ancient spirits who remain even as human presence has waned. Local lore claims that the Jinn respond to intention. Those who enter with respect may witness fleeting visions, hear whispers of prayers, or feel a gentle guidance through the Mosquea's darkened halls. Those who enter with disregard or fear may experience the opposite, an overwhelming sense of being watched, shadows that follow persistently, and whispers that unsettle rather than calm. Even the smallest details evoke the supernatural. A door creaks as if pushed by invisible hands, floorboards groan under no weight, and distant whispers seem to call directly to individual visitors. Some report hearing names spoken softly in Arabic, repeated over and over, a layering of voices from centuries past. Others describe feeling a slight tug at their clothing or a chill passing over their shoulders, sensations that vanish instantly but leave a lingering unease. Despite these unsettling experiences, the Whispering Walls Mosque continues to attract those drawn to the paranormal. Urban explorers, spiritual seekers, and locals curious about the legends enter its halls, hoping to witness the Mosquea's strange phenomena firsthand. Few stay long, but almost all leave with the same realization. The mosque is alive in a way ordinary structures cannot be. Its walls hold memory, its air carries whispers of devotion, and its Jinn remain vigilant, tied eternally to the land and the energy that surrounds it. By day, the mosque appears inert, a forgotten building steeped in dust and shadow. By night, it awakens. Whispers rise from every corner, shadows drift through arched windows, and cold drafts sweep across floors where no human foot has tread. The Jinn of the Whispering Walls Mosque remain bound to the earth, guardians of a sacred space abandoned by humans yet alive with unseen energy. Those who enter leave changed, carrying the echoes of whispered prayers and the sensation of invisible eyes following their steps, a reminder that some spaces, even in ruins, are never truly empty. The Crescent Shadows Mosque in San Diego stands as a silent monument to a past long forgotten. Its roof is gone, leaving the prayer hall exposed to the sky, and the walls are cracked, weathered by decades of sun, wind, and neglect. Despite its ruinous state, the mosque carries an unmistakable presence, an energy that seems to pulse through its broken arches and shattered windows. Locals and daring explorers speak of the mosque with a mixture of awe and fear, recounting experiences that suggest it is not merely abandoned, but alive in ways unseen. By day, the Crescent Shadows Mosque is quiet and still. Sunlight pours through the open roof, illuminating dust-covered floors and the jagged remnants of arches. The tiles, once arranged in intricate patterns, are chipped and scattered, yet they catch the light in strange ways, creating fleeting illusions of movement. But as night descends, the atmosphere shifts. The air thickens with a presence that is felt more than seen. Shadows stretch unnaturally across the floor, sometimes flickering in directions opposite to the wind, moving independently as though guided by unseen hands. The feeling begins as a subtle prickling along the skin, a sense that eyes are following each step. Some appear human at first glance, their silhouettes fleeting and distorted, vanishing when approached. Others take on less definable forms, flickering like smoke or flowing like liquid, twisting across the tiles in patterns impossible to follow. Then came the Shadow Salong, undulating forms moving along the walls, darting across the prayer hall against the window-esque direction. A faint chanting began, soft at first, almost imperceptible, then gradually layering into voices that seemed to come from every corner simultaneously. The explorers froze, realizing that the mosque was responding to their presence. Cold drafts swept through the open roof, chilling their skin even as the desert air outside remained warm. The shadows seemed to react to their movements, flitting away when they approached and returning when they hesitated. The Crescent Shadows Mosque has a reputation for unpredictability. Shadows that guide them along the corridors. Whispers of prayers in the night air, or fleeting figures that vanish harmlessly. Others have described far more unsettling encounters of phantom touches on shoulders. Doors that slam without wind, and shadows that loom just beyond the reach of light. The Jinn are believed to judge those who enter, testing courage, respect, and intention. Those who approach with reverence may witness strange but harmless phenomena, while the reckless or disrespectful are confronted with experiences designed to unsettle, disorient, or even terrify. Flickering lights are another hallmark of the mosque at night. Moonlight filters through the roofless arches, reflecting off shards of broken glass and scattered tiles. These reflections sometimes take on a life of their own, forming orbs or moving streaks of illumination. Some witnesses swear they have seen the shadows interacting, with these lights chasing them, bending around them, or disappearing into them. The interplay of shadow and light creates an environment where perception becomes unreliable, leaving visitors unsure of what is real and what is supernatural. Whispers are a constant companion within the Crescent Shadows Mosque. They emerge from corners where the walls meet the floor, rising from cracks and fissures, layering into fragmented Arabic prayers. Occasionally, these whispers seem to mimic the voices of intruders, repeating names or words spoken moments before. The effect is disorienting, instilling both awe and fear in those present. It is as if the mosque itself listens, records, and responds to every sound, weaving a tapestry of echoes that only the initiatida or the bravia can begin to interpret. Despite the risks, the mosque continues to draw explorers, spiritual seekers, and those intrigued by the paranormal. Cameras and recorders often fail within its walls. Batteries drain inexplicably, static fills audio equipment, and photographs reveal only blurred lights and shadows. Yet even in failure, the Crescent Shadows Mosque leaves a lasting impression. Visitors emerge from the ruins carrying the memory of its eerie energy, the feeling of unseen eyes upon them, and the knowledge that the mosque is more than stone and sonda. It is a living space, bound by ancient spirits and tests beyond human understanding. By day, the Crescent Shadows Mosque appears inert, a roofless ruin bathed in sunlight. By night, it awakens. Shadows move against the wind, whispers echo in the empty halls, and the Jinn linger, guardians of a sacred space and the mysteries it holds. Those who enter are forever marked by the Mosquea-esque presence, carrying with them the memory of flickering shadows, ghostly whispers, and the inexplicable feeling of being watched in a place where the boundary between the natural and supernatural has long ceased to exist. The Golden Minaret Mosque in Oakland stands as a crumbling testament to a once vibrant spiritual community. Its minaret, now leaning precariously, casts a long shadow over the surrounding lot, tilting as though weighed down by the weight of unseen forces. The walls of the mosque are weathered, stained by decades of rain and sun, and many of its windows are shattered or boarded over. Yet despite its abandoned state, the mosque retains an uncanny vitality, an energy that defies its ruin. Locals speak of it in hushed tones, recounting strange experiences and unexplained phenomena that suggest the mosque is far from empty. By day, the mosque is quiet and unassuming. The leaning minaret looks as though it might topple at any moment, and the prayer hall is littered with debris, faded carpets, and dust-coated remnants of worship. Visitors can explore the empty hallways, noting the intricate tilework and arches, now dulled and cracked with age. Light pours through broken windows, casting fragmented patterns across the floor, but the atmosphere feels heavy, as if the mosque itself holds its breath, waiting. As evening descends, this waiting transforms into a palpable presence. The air grows colder, and shadows begin to stretch unnaturally across the walls. Even when the mosque is empty, witnesses swear they can hear the call to prayer emanating from the leaning minaret. It starts as a faint echo, barely audible over the ambient sounds of the city, then grows more distinct, a hauntingly beautiful chant reverberating across the empty hall. No living person is ever found performing the call, yet its melody persists, echoing across the surrounding streets, filling the air with both serenity and unease. Locals attribute these echoes to restless jinn, spirits tied to the mosque and its sacred energy, lingering long after human presence has faded. Those who venture inside report a range of supernatural experiences. Some describe sudden chills that sweep through their bodies, freezing the air around them without warning. Others feel the sensation of unseen presences brushing past or standing just behind them, pressing against the edge of perception. Shadows move in ways that defy logic, appearing against broken walls or arches, darting along corridors, and disappearing when confronted directly. Many report hearing whispers, fragmented Arabic prayers, or low murmurs that seem to emanate from the walls themselves. These experiences are fleeting yet persistent, a constant reminder that the mosque is alive in a way ordinary buildings are not. One night, a small group of urban explorers entered the mosque, drawn by tales of jinn and ghostly calls. The first thing they noticed was the sudden drop in temperature, a cold so intense that it seeped into their bones despite their jackets. Shadows flickered along the walls and arches, sometimes appearing in groups as if moving in unison. The call to prayer began softly, seeming to come from all directions at once, filling the air with a resonance that was both comforting and disorienting. As they moved further into the mosque, the whispers started, first indistinct, and then forming recognizable phrases, repeated in cycles as if the mosque itself were speaking. The explorers felt the weight of unseen eyes, each step drawing them deeper into a realm where the boundary between the living and the spiritual blurred. The Golden Minaret Mosques Jinn are said to respond to intent. Those who enter with respect often report fleeting visions of the mosque as it once was, with worshippers moving through its halls and sunlight filtering through pristine windows. They hear prayers repeated softly, shadows that seem to guide rather than frighten, and a subtle warmth amid the cold that hints at benevolent attention. Conversely, those who enter with doubt, fear, or disrespect experience the mosque differently. Sudden gusts of icy air, shadows that loom aggressively, doors that slam without cause, and whispers that provoke disorientation or panic. It is a place where the unseen actively tests the living, gauging their courage, reverence, and humility. Light interacts with the mosque in strange ways. Moonlight catches on broken tiles, creating patterns that flicker and dance across the floor, often forming shapes that resemble human figures. The leaning minaret seems to catch the breeze, amplifying sounds and creating harmonic echoes that mimic voices or footsteps. Visitors report hearing their own names spoken softly in the shadows, whispers that seem to follow them through corridors and prayer halls. The atmosphere is constantly shifting, unpredictable, and intensely personal, leaving each visitor with an experience unlike any other. Despite the risks, the mosque continues to attract those drawn to the supernatural. Paranormal researchers, spiritual seekers, and curious locals enter its crumbling halls, hoping to witness the phenomena firsthand. Cameras often fail, batteries drain inexplicably, and recordings capture only distorted sounds and blurred images of light and shadow. Yet even in failure, the mosque leaves a lasting impression, a reminder that some places hold a life and awareness beyond human comprehension. By day, the Golden Minaret Mosque appears abandoned, a leaning relic of spiritual devotion overtaken by time. By night, it awakens. Shadows flicker across broken floors, whispers of prayers echo from its walls. And the call to prayer drifts from the leaning minaret as though sung by unseen voices. The Jinn linger, testing those who enter, guardians of sacred space and hidden energy. Anyone who dares step inside emerges changed, carrying with them the memory of chills, fleeting figures, whispered prayers, and the undeniable sense of being observed in a place where the boundary between the living and the unseen has long vanished. The Dunes of Silence Mosque in Santa Clarita rests amid shifting sands, half buried and forgotten by time. Once a place of devotion and prayer, it now stands abandoned, its walls weathered by wind and sun, arches crumbling, and intricate tilework nearly swallowed by encroaching dunes. The desert seems to claim it slowly, as though the sands themselves are determined to erase the memory of those who once gathered within. Yet, despite its ruin, the mosque hums with a presence that draws the curious and the brave, whispering of histories long buried and spirits long unrest. By day, the mosque appears eerily tranquil. The air is hot, dry, and heavy, carrying only the sound of wind brushing across dunes and scattered debris. Even birds and desert animals seem to avoid this place, leaving only the sand and stone to witness the Mosquea's desolation. The silence transforms. It becomes watchful, alive, as though the mosque itself is holding its breath, waiting. When night falls, the Dunes of Silence Mosque awakens in ways that cannot be seen in daylight. Visitors report faint whispering, barely audible at first, drifting across the desert wind. The voices are indecipherable, but carry the unmistakable cadence of prayer and lamentation. At times, the whispers seem to follow a single person, moving with them through the ruins, vanishing only when the visitor stops in fear. Shadows stretch across the sand-covered floors, sometimes twisting against the natural angle of moonlight, and shapes emerge from the corners of vision, vanishing when directly observed. These are believed to be the jinn that linger here, spirits trapped long ago, bound to the mosque by events lost to memory. Travelers and explorers recount experiences that defy logic. Some have felt cold drafts pass through their bodies, even in the desert heat, a sudden chill that raises goosebumps and freezes the blood. Others report the sensation of being brushed by unseen hands, light touches across the arms or shoulders, as if the past itself is reaching out. Footsteps echo in empty halls and sand-choked corridors, yet no one else is present. At times, the mosque seems to respond to movement. Shadows flicker faster, whispers grow louder, and sand shifts in the corners of the floor without wind or cause. Many believe that the jinn inhabiting the mosque are not merely mischievous spirits, but souls of those who once lived and prayed there, bound by tragic circumstances. Some were said to be caretakers or worshippers who died in isolation, victims of disease, or travelers lost to the desert. Others may have been wronged or abandoned, their energy left behind in a kind of spiritual residue. These trapped souls are thought to replay moments of their lives, whispering, moving, and manifesting in ways that are subtle but deeply unsettling. They are guardians of a place that is no longer theirs, yet cannot fully leave. The interplay of shadows and whispers is particularly pronounced during the deserta-esque quiet nights. Moonlight streaming through crumbling arches illuminates the sand in strange, shifting patterns. Some visitors swear they see figures standing among the dunes outside the mosque, ghostly silhouettes that vanish when approached. Flickering lights appear at times within the prayer hall, moving like wandering orbs or lanterns guided by unseen hands. Whispers rise and fall in waves, sometimes forming the faint intonation of Arabic prayer, sometimes carrying fragmented lamentations of loss. Even those who enter with the intention of respect report strange phenomena. The mosque does not discriminate in its manifestations, though it is said that intentions are noticed. Those with reverence might experience gentle brushes of wind that feel almost like guidance, faint voices that echo old prayers, or shadows that seem to pause in acknowledgement before fading. Those with skepticism or fear, however, report sudden gusts of icy air, whispering voices that mimic their own words, and shadows that loom threateningly in corners. The mosque tests, warns, and reminds all who enter that this is a place steeped in both spiritual energy and unresolved history. Over time, the mosque has become a legend for travelers and paranormal enthusiasts. Cameras often fail within the ruins, electronics short, batteries die inexplicably, and recordings capture distorted audio filled with unidentifiable whispers and static. Photographs often reveal nothing but blurred shadows, flickers of light, and shifting patterns in sand that seem to move independently. Even when human attempts to document the site fail, the experiences remain vivid and unforgettable for those who venture inside. By day, the Dunes of Silence Mosque seems deserted, lost amid the wind-swept sands of Santa Clarita. By night, it awakens, alive with whispers, shadows, and the subtle presence of jinn and trapped souls. The air grows cold. Unseen hands brush past, and soft, indecipherable prayers float across the sand. Travelers leave the mosque marked by its energy, carrying the memory of unseen watchers, shifting shadows, and the unshakable knowledge that the Dunes of Silence Mosque is far more than stone, sand, and ruina. It is a place where the past refuses to remain silent. The Veiled Light Mosque in San Francisco stands in quiet decay, a crumbling relic of worship amidst the city's relentless sprawl. Once a place of vibrant prayers and communal gatherings, it now lies abandoned, its walls cracked and faded, and its roof partially collapsed. What remains of the mosque, however, carries an uncanny vitality. Broken stained glass windows filter the sunlight into the interior, scattering shards of colored light across the floor and walls. These patterns seem to shift subtly, even when the sun hangs still in the sky, creating the impression of movement, as if the light itself is alive. Dust swirls through sunbeams, and debris litters the once polished floors. The hallways echo with every step, amplifying the emptiness. Broken tiles glint faintly underfoot, reflecting the fractured sunlight, and in these reflections, some swear they catch vague humanoid forms that vanish when looked at directly. Even those familiar with urban exploration feel a hesitation upon entering, a pull of apprehension that hints at the unseen life inhabiting the mosque. The interplay of light and shadow is subtle yet unnerving, and those who linger often feel a presence manipulating perception, as if the mosque itself is testing the boundaries between reality and illusion. As the sun sets and the city lights fade, the Veiled Light Mosque transforms. Shadows stretch and curl along the walls, no longer fully anchored to the architecture. Colors from the stained glass deepen and shift, forming patterns that are impossible to trace, moving in ways that defy logic. Visitors report seeing humanoid shapes among these shifting lights, vague outlines that seem to drift just beyond recognition. Sometimes the figures appear to bow or gesture, only to dissolve when approached. The experience is disorienting, a constant question of whether what is seen is real, imagined, or something entirely otherworldly. Whispers accompany the illusions, soft and intermittent at first, then growing more distinct. They are often indistinct fragments of speech, sometimes resembling Arabic phrases or prayers, sometimes unintelligible murmurs. The whispers seem to follow visitors from room to room, circling without origin, guiding and misleading in equal measure. Those who explore without caution often find themselves turned around, retracing their steps without realizing it, as if the mosque's interior subtly rearranges itself to confuse intruders. Some claim to have felt invisible hands brush against their shoulders or heard footsteps pacing alongside their own, though the hall remains empty. Some claim to have felt invisible hands brush against their shoulders or heard footsteps pacing alongside their own, though the hall remains empty. The Jinn said to inhabit the Veiled Light Mosque are believed to delight in misdirection and illusions. Unlike malicious spirits, their interactions are playful, testing curiosity and caution. Travelers who enter respectfully and with attention often witness brief glimpses of the mosque as it once was. With worshippers moving through light-dappled halls and sunlight streaming unbroken through intact stained glass. The experience is fleeting, as if the mosque allows only a partial view of its former life before drawing the observer back into the present ruin. Those who enter with fear or disrespect encounter a more unsettling environment. Shadows that loom aggressively, whispers that mimic their own voices, and sudden, inexplicable chills. Visitors also recount the strange effect of light within the mosque. Beams refracted through broken glass cast constantly shifting mosaics across the floors and walls. At times, these colored patterns appear to move independently of the sun, forming shapes that resemble fleeting figures dancing across the hall. Some explorers have attempted to photograph or film these phenomena, only to capture blurs of color and shadow, distorted reflections that suggest movement where none exists. Videos often contain faint murmurs, distorted voices, and the occasional fleeting silhouette caught at the edge of the frame. The mosque resists being fully documented, its illusions fleeting and elusive, leaving only memory and sensation behind. The interplay of light, shadow, and sound at the Veiled Light Mosque creates an experience that is both beautiful and disorienting. Moonlight, when it enters through broken windows at night, amplifies the already uncanny patterns of the stained glass, casting an ethereal glow over the floors and walls. Figures appear to drift through the illuminated dust, humanoid but indistinct, as if the mosque itself shapes them from the fractured light. Whispers echo across the hallways, circling and doubling back, often giving the impression of presence even in the absence of any physical form. The Jinn seem to use these phenomena deliberately, shaping perception and testing those who dare to linger. Despite the danger of missteps and the disorienting illusions, the mosque continues to attract visitors. Paranormal researchers, urban explorers, and those drawn by curiosity venture into the ruinous halls, each encountering their own version of the mosque's mysteries. Electronics often fail or record only fragments of the experiences, cameras capturing blurred figures and distorted light. Even in these incomplete records, the essence of the mosque, the interplay of illusions, whispers, and shifting shadowsa remains undeniable. Shadows move in impossible ways, whispers echo from nowhere, and faint humanoid forms drift among the fractured sunbeams. The Jinn delight in guiding and misleading, shaping perception with a subtle, omnipresent hand. Those who enter emerge with a memory that lingers, the sense of having walked through a realm where light, shadow, and spirit intertwine, and the knowledge that some places refuse to be fully understood, existing between reality and the illusions of the unseen, and the knowledge that some places refuse to be fully understood, existing between reality and the illusions of the unseen, existing between reality and the illusions of the unseen, that some places refuse to be fully understood. The Forgotten Prayer Mosque in Riverside sits quietly among overgrown weeds and cracked pavement. A silent sentinel to a past long abandoned, its walls faded. Once a place of devotion, now it stands empty, its dome partially crumbled. The prayer hall strewn with debris, the atmosphere thick with the scent of decay and forgotten prayers. Despite its decay, the mosque radiates a palpable energy, a lingering presence that draws the curious and the unwary alike. A lingering presence that draws the curious and the unwary alike. Visitors often feel an immediate sense of being observed, as though the mosque itself has not forgotten those who once knelt within its walls. Every corner seems to hum with a subtle vibration, a quiet echo of devotion that never fully dissipated. By day, the mosque appears innocuous. Sunlight filters through broken windows, casting long, fractured beams across the dusty floors. Footsteps sound louder than expected, reverberating through empty halls with an unnerving clarity. Some visitors notice faint outlines in the corners of their vision, shapes that vanish when looked at directly. Others report the sensation of cold drafts, brushing past them in a space where no wind seems to flow. The mosque's silence feels heavy, expectant, as though it waits for some thinga or someone. As the sun sinks and shadows lengthen, the mosque changes. The once quiet halls begin to echo with whispers, low and intermittent at first, then swelling into faint but distinct voices. Sometimes, these voices recite prayers in languages unfamiliar to those who hear them, strings of syllables that flow with rhythm and reverence, yet remain completely unintelligible. The whispers seem to move along the corridors, circling visitors, following them from room to room. At times, the whispers fade into silence only to return with startling suddenness, as if the mosque itself is breathing, alive in some unseen way. Those who explore the mosque at night often report a growing sense of being followed. Footsteps echo alongside their own, soft but deliberate, moving in tandem and then stopping whenever the visitor pauses. Shadows appear to drift against walls, sometimes forming vague humanoid shapes that seem to watch, only to vanish when approached. Some witnesses speak of fleeting glimpses of figures kneeling in silent prayer, translucent and ethereal, fading into the darkness as the intruder's gaze falls upon them. The presence within the mosque is not malevolent, yet it is insistenta a constant reminder that the space is not truly empty. Legend has it that the Jinn inhabit the forgotten prayer mosque, attracted by centuries of devotion, by prayers once spoken, and by the emotions left behind in the wake of abandonment. These Jinn are not purely mischievous, nor entirely hostile. They seem to interact with visitors according to intent. Those who enter respectfully may encounter only subtle phenomena. Whispers in the distance, shadows that pause before vanishing, or a gentle chill that brushes past them. Those with fear, doubt, or disrespect often experience stronger manifestations of phantom footsteps, shifting shadows that appear to follow, and a sensation of being observed from every dark corner. Many visitors describe the mosque's acoustics as unnerving. A single whisper can appear to emanate from multiple directions at once, overlapping and echoing in ways that confuse and disorient. Even when no one else is present, footsteps and faint rustling of fabric or paper can be heard. Some claim that the mosque reacts to human attention, guiding or misleading, encouraging cautious observation while punishing reckless intrusion. Electronic devices often fail inside, cameras capturing only blurred shapes and distorted shadows, while audio recordings contain whispers that seem to originate from nowhere, layered and overlapping in ways that defy explanation. The mosque's architecture contributes to the unsettling sensation. Narrow corridors open into wide halls, arches frame long stretches of floor, and broken doors creak with an inexplicable resonance. The interplay of light and shadow shifts as the sun moves, and at night, moonlight filtering through broken windows adds an ethereal glow. Visitors often report seeing reflections of figures in shattered glass or polished tiles that are nowhere in the room itself. Shapes appear, move, and vanish, leaving only the sense of being observed and the echo of soft voices lingering in the ears. Despite its decay, the Forgotten Prayer Mosque continues to draw attention, both from urban explorers and those seeking the paranormal. Its mysteries are subtle but pervasive. Shadows that twist against the light, whispers that rise and fall with no visible source, and the inescapable sense of being followed. The Jinn, it is said, remain tied to the mosque, guardians of an abandoned sacred space, neither entirely benevolent nor cruel, but vigilant and watchful. By the end of any visit, the mosque leaves a lasting impression. Even as visitors step back into the open streets of Riverside, the echo of footsteps, whispers, and prayers continues to linger in the mind. The Forgotten Prayer Mosque exists in a liminal space, a place where the past and present converge, where unseen watchers observe, and where those who enter cannot help but feel that some prayers are forgotten, though they may be still resonate within its walls. It is a space of memory, of presence, and of the unseen, a mosque that refuses to remain silent. Where unseen watchers observe, and where those who enter cannot help but feel that some prayers are forgotten, though they may be still resonate within its walls. The silent Minbar Mosque in Los Angeles sits hidden among cracked streets and vacant lots, a forgotten relic of faith and devotion. Though its exterior is weathered and crumbling, the mosque's pulpita, its minbara, remains surprisingly intact, standing as a solemn monument to centuries of prayers and learning. The building itself seems to hum with a quiet energy, a lingering presence that draws the curious, the devout, and those seeking the paranormal alike. From the moment one steps inside, the air feels heavier, thick with unspoken reverence and the weight of unseen eyes watching every movement. During daylight, the mosque appears abandoned and lifeless. The walls, once adorned with intricate calligraphy and patterns, are now chipped and faded, revealing glimpses of the vibrant colors that once illuminated the sacred space. Footsteps echo unnaturally in the empty halls, amplified by the mosque's high ceilings. Some visitors notice shadows flickering along the walls, strange and fleeting, vanishing when approached. Others report cold drafts that brush across their skin, felt despite still air, as if invisible hands are gedinga or warning to them. Even during the day, faint chanting sometimes drifts through the corridors. At first, it is nearly imperceptible, like a whisper carried on the wind. But as one moves closer to the minbar, the sounds grow more distinct. Words in Arabic, soft and measured, repeated over and over, though no one is physically present. Visitors have reported a sense of presence near the pulpit, a feeling that the air itself is alive, resonating with energy tied to devotion and knowledge long forgotten. Some claim the chanting is a protective measure, guarding the sacred manuscripts once stored here, remnants of spiritual learning that are now lost to time. As night falls, the mosque transforms. Moonlight streams through shattered windows, illuminating the hall in ghostly patterns. Shadows stretch and twist across the floors, sometimes forming vague humanoid shapes that drift silently from archway to archway. The chanting grows louder for some visitors, forming a layered chorus of voices that seem to come from every direction at once. Those who linger near the minbar describe an almost magnetic pull toward it, a sensation that some hidden secret or knowledge is waiting to be discovered, yet always just beyond reach. Visitors often report feeling watched throughout the mosque, though the source remains unseen. Whispers rise from corners and archways, sometimes repeating prayers, sometimes murmuring words incomprehensible to the human ear. The air becomes thick, almost tangible, carrying the weight of centuries of devotion. Some say the Jinn inhabiting the mosque take pleasure in these manifestations, guiding intruders gently or testing their intentions. The spirits are protective rather than aggressive, linked not to harm, but to the safeguarding of the sacred knowledge hidden within the walls. The interplay of light and shadow is uncanny. Reflections in broken glass or polished tiles sometimes reveal fleeting figures kneeling in prayer, bowing, or moving along the mosque's corridors. These apparitions vanish when approached, leaving only the echo of movement and the lingering fragrance of incense that is no longer there. Visitors attempting to photograph or record the phenomena often capture only distorted images, blurred shadows, and faint, untraceable sounds. Even the most sophisticated recording equipment struggles to capture the mosque's full presence, as though the energy within resists being fully documented. The mosque's architecture contributes to the unnerving feeling of unreality. Narrow hallways open into wide prayer halls, and the arches cast elongated shadows that seem to move independently of the light. Broken doors creak with no wind, tiles shift subtly underfoot, and even the minbar itself seems to pulse with energy. A silent heart of devotion and mystery. Those who stand too long in front of the pulpit often feel the air thicken, as if the space itself is breathing, waiting for the right visitor to unlock the knowledge it guards or to turn away respectfully. Legends surrounding the silent minbar mosque speak of sacred manuscripts hidden beneath or within the walls, containing spiritual knowledge and teachings left behind by the mosque's original caretakers. It is said that the Jinn protect these secrets, ensuring they remain undisturbed until someone worthy enters with reverence and understanding. Trespassers, or the disrespectful, often experience stronger phenomena. Shadows that loom, whispers that mimic their voices, and cold drafts that brush sharply across their skin. The mosque tests every visitor, measuring intention against curiosity, reverence against recklessness. Despite the dangersa, or perhaps because of thema, the mosque continues to draw explorers, researchers, and seekers of the paranormal. Some leave unnerved, with memories of soft chanting and shifting shadows lingering long after they exit. Others report fleeting moments of clarity, glimpses of knowledge, or the feeling of understanding a fragment of the past before it dissolves into the night. The silent minbar mosque exists as a liminal space where devotion, memory, and the unseen converge, a place where the Jinn linger to protect what remains sacred and hidden. Those who venture inside cannot help but feel the weight of centuries of worship, the pull of unseen eyes, and the echo of prayers that refuse to die. The mosque stands silent yet alive, a guardian of forgotten knowledge, a keeper of unseen watchers, and a testament to the mysteries that persist when human presence fades. Here, in the hushed corridors and beneath the shadowed arches, The past and the supernatural intertwine, leaving a haunting impression that lingers long after the doors close behind the visitor. The Broken Crescent Mosque in Sacramento sits in silence, a weathered structure abandoned to time and neglect. Its walls are cracked, plaster flaking in uneven patches, and the floors sag and buckle beneath decades of disuse. Despite the decay, the mosque retains an undeniable presence, a lingering energy that draws those curious enough to venture near. By day, the building seems quiet, even forlorn, with shattered windows casting fractured light across dusty carpets and faded prayer rugs. But as night falls, the mosque awakens in ways that are both subtle and unsettling, whispering of the unseen forces that linger within. Visitors who approach the mosque after dusk often report a change in the air as they step onto its uneven floors. A coldness seems to seep from the cracked walls, brushing past them in sudden drafts where no wind exists. The silence of the abandoned structure is deceptive, for even before entering, one might hear faint echoey soft, measured, prayerful tones that seem to rise from the building itself. Some say the mosque's very stones carry the prayers of those who once knelt there, replaying devotion long after human presence has vanished. Once inside, the phenomena become more pronounced. Shadowy forms drift along the walls, fleeting shapes that vanish when observed directly. Near the mihrab, the central niche of the mosque, several visitors have reported seeing smoky, almost translucent figures kneeling or bowing as though engaged in prayer. These forms do not interact directly, but seem to move with purpose, lingering just long enough to be noticed before dissipating into the darkness. The mosque is alive with quiet energy, a reminder that the space has not been emptied by time alone. The Jinn said to inhabit the Broken Crescent Mosque are not purely malevolent, yet they are mischievous and unpredictable. Legend suggests they play tricks on intruders, guiding them in circles through the halls, whispering directions that vanish when followed. Those who wander too quickly or without caution often report a sense of disorientation, as if the mosque itself reshapes its corridors at will. Visitors speak of passages that suddenly seem longer, of doorways appearing where none existed, and of faint sounds echoing from every corner of steps, whispers, and the faint rustle of fabric moving unseen. At night, the mosque's acoustic properties amplify these phenomena. A single whisper can appear to originate from multiple directions simultaneously, overlapping in ways that confuse and unsettle. Footsteps echo unnaturally, sometimes preceding the visitor, sometimes following. Some intruders claim to hear their own names whispered in prayerful tones, though the voices are not their own, adding a sense of intimate unease. The air grows thick, almost tangible, carrying the residue of centuries of devotion, fear, and unseen watchers. The mosque's architecture enhances the otherworldly experience. The arches cast elongated shadows that move as if independent of the light, and the crumbling minbara, though intacta, radiates a subtle energy, drawing attention with an almost magnetic pull. Broken tiles and uneven flooring create patterns that shift in the flickering light of moonbeams, and mirrors or polished surfaces sometimes reveal shapes that vanish when approached. Even standing still, visitors may feel as if Summonia or something is pacing behind them, always just out of reach. For those daring to explore its depths, the Broken Crescent Mosque is both a place of awe and caution. The smoky forms near the mihrab are not harmful, but serve as reminders that the space is watched, that devotion and reverence linger here beyond human memory. Many report feeling an invisible presence guiding their movements, urging careful observation rather than reckless intrusion. Disrespect or haste seems to provoke a stronger response. Doors creaking open and shut, shadows darting closer, whispers growing louder, and the sensation of unseen eyes tracking every movement. Those who remain near the mihrab often speak of an overwhelming sense of history. The prayers that echo through the mosque carry both sorrow and devotion, the residue of human effort intertwined with the playful, sometimes capricious jinn. Some explorers report glimpses of ancient manuscripts hidden in recesses, though no physical evidence has ever been confirmed. The sense of sacred knowledge, however, persists, as if the jinn protect something beyond the visible, teasing the curious while guarding the mosque's deeper mysteries. Even after leaving the mosque, the experience lingers. Visitors describe the sensation of being watched long after stepping into the open air, the faint echo of footsteps and whispered prayers following them through the night. The Broken Crescent Mosque exists as a liminal space, caught between the past and the present, where human devotion, lingering spirits, and supernatural entities converge. Shadows move, whispers persist, and the Jinn continue their silent vigilance, reminding all who enter that some places are never truly empty. In this mosque, the line between the living and the unseen blurs. It is a place of echoes, mischief, and quiet reverence, where smoky figures kneel eternally, and those who wander must tread carefully. The Broken Crescent Mosque is both a monument and a mystery, an abandoned sacred space alive with unseen watchers and playful, sometimes capricious, spirits that refuse to be forgotten. Its walls may crumble, its floors may sag, but its energy and derisa silent, watchful, and eternal. Alcamar Mosque in San Bernardino stands as a solemn relic of a once thriving community, its walls now crumbling and silent, overtaken by dust, decay, and the passage of time. Its walls now crumbling and silent, overtaken by dust, decay, and the passage of time. Once rang with the sounds of worship, Childrina's footsteps in the courtyard, and the echo of communal prayers. Today, it sits abandoned, a hushed monument to devotion long forgotten. From the outside, the mosque appears fragile yet enduring. The minaret casts a long shadow over the overgrown courtyard. Broken windows allow moonlight to spill into the prayer hall, illuminating fractured tiles and peeling plaster in ghostly patterns. Stepping inside, the weight of centuries presses down on visitors. The air is thick with silence, yet that silence is deceptive, for it carries echoes of the past. Shadows stretch unnaturally across the prayer hall at night, seeming to reach for the walls and corners as if testing their boundaries. Many who enter report an immediate sensation of being observed, as though invisible eyes follow each movement. Cold drafts brush the skin without warning, and the uneven floors creak underfoot, their groans sounding like whispers of footsteps long since past. It is near the mihrab that the mosquea's presence becomes most tangible. The niche that once directed worshippers toward Mecca now radiates an almost magnetic energy. Shadows appear to drift across it, stretching and shrinking in ways that defy natural light. Visitors claim that they can hear whispers of Nemisa voices calling out to those who walk alone in the hall. These names are unfamiliar, often ancient-sounding, and seem to carry with them fragments of memories, prayers, and lives long gone. Some suggest these whispers belong to the Jinn inhabiting the mosque, spirits older than any human who has ever entered. Their presence is woven into the very stones of the building. They move silently through the shadows, their forms barely perceptible. The Jinn of Alcamar Mosque are a mystery, hidden from human sight. Some visitors speak of being led in circles, wandering through hallways that seem to rearrange themselves, as if the mosque itself bends to the Jinn's will. These spirits are protective yet enigmatic, their motives inscrutable, their patience endless. The sound is not always loud. Often it is subtle, a soft undercurrent that brushes against the ears, filling the corners of the hall and creating the impression of movement where there is none. Shadows twist along the arches and ceilings, mimicking the gestures of worshippers who have long since departed. Even the broken windows participate, casting fractured light that seems to shimmer and ripple as if alive, revealing figures kneeling in prayer or walking silently among the pews. Those who linger report feeling a pull toward certain areas of the mosque, as though some secrets lie hidden, waiting for discovery. The minbar, though covered in dust and partially rotted, radiates an almost tangible energy. Visitors describe standing before it and sensing a presence nearby, an invisible guide that watches, tests, and sometimes teases, ensuring that only the cautious and respectful perceive its messages. Attempts to photograph or record the mosque often fail to capture its true essence. Images are blurred, audio recordings distorted, and even the most sensitive equipment cannot fully capture the ancient energy suffusing the hall. Despite the silence and decay, Alcamar Mosque continues to draw explorers, historians, and seekers of the paranormal. Each visitor leaves with a sense of awe and unease. Many describe shadows that linger long after leaving, footsteps that echo in memory, and whispers that replay names from the night. The mosque is a place where time folds upon itself, where the past and the present intertwine, and where the Jinn remind intruders that some places are never truly empty. Trespassers or the careless may experience sudden chills, shifting shadows, or whispers that seem almost mocking. Those who approach with respect, however, often feel moments of Clarissa glimpses of devotion preserved across decades, a sense of connection to the lives and prayers that once filled the mosque. The spirits seem to encourage reflection rather than intrusion, testing intent and measuring reverence. Even from outside, the mosque exudes its presence. On quiet nights, locals have reported the faint sound of chanting carried on the wind, though no one remains inside. Moonlight illuminates shapes moving beneath the broken windows, and shadows stretch unnaturally across the exterior walls. The Jinn are said to linger not only within the mosque but around it, guarding the sacred space, preserving its memories, and maintaining a connection to a past that refuses to fade completely. Al-Qamar Mosque is more than a building. It is a living memory, a place where devotion, shadow, and the supernatural converge. Its walls may crumble, its floors may sag, and its windows may shatter, but the echoes of prayers, the presence of the Jinn, and the energy of the past endure. Those who enter cannot leave unchanged. They carry with them the whispers, the shadows, and the sense of being watched, long after the doors have closed behind them. These are the haunted abandoned mosques of California, where stone and silence are alive with the whispers of jinns, spirits, and the echoes of forgotten prayers. If you ever find yourself